Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting for November the 7th, 2023. Mrs. Hilbrick, will you please call roll?
Yes, sir. Councilman De La Garza?
I am present.
Councilwoman Solis? Here. Councilman Crocker?
Here.
Councilwoman Scott?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Young?
Here.
Councilman Lofgren?
Here.
And Mayor Bauknight.
Here. If everyone will please rise for the pledges, followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. All right, good evening, Mr. Garza. Do you have any announcements and/or reminders for us today? We have one on the agenda.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and council members. We do actually have several announcements and reminders. And to kick it off, I'm going to ask Darryl Lesak to come up and provide an update regarding our ongoing efforts to expand the landfill.
Oh, I like the way you put it, where the button's on top. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm here tonight to talk about a 6-year project that has just been completed. As of October 26th, our landfill expansion permit was signed for our landfill. Just kind of run through.
Can we applaud?
Yeah, that's
You
what I
may.
was thinking.
Just to kind of run through the process, when we talked to council about this way back in 2018, council was really up for trying to get this done. My remarks were, this is going to get harder the longer we wait. Environmental rules change all the time, and it's never going to get easier. We talked about it. We decided to do it. We contracted with Burns & McDonnell in 2018. There were 6 original tasks. We completed those, and we submitted our permit in 2022. So about a 4-year process. We were hoping the whole process would only take about 3 years. Now, when you get FEMA, Army Corps of Engineers, you have to do wildlife studies, historical studies, all those types of things. It takes a while to get those done. In June of 2022, we were marked administratively complete, which means all the paperwork was in line. We had 3 NODs that I came back to council and talked about. Those are notice of deficiencies, so different things they had questions on. We worked through those. In September of this year, we were granted our technically complete permit, which means technically it will all work. So now administratively we're good, technically we're good as well. And on October 26th, the head administrator, executive director of TCEQ signed our permit. What does this do for us? Current landfill is 150 acres. We've got, we fluctuate based off of volumes, but, another 8 to 15 years just depends. If we have a hurricane, it could be as little as 10 or 8 years. If we don't have any hurricanes, we might see another 12 or 15. But that 293 acres that is in yellow is the newly expanded permitted portion of our landfill. What does that do? That gives us another 293 acres to put trash in. That's 100+ years. That's not counting the years I just talked about of remaining life. Of course, that will increase and decrease based off of volumes as we go through. But one of the biggest things that we talked to council about, and it's going to be huge for us in revenue, is the Class 1 non-hazardous classification. In the state of Texas, which is one of the very few states that does this, all plant trash, regardless of what it is considered Class 1 non-hazardous waste. Most of our plant trash from our plants here ends up going to Houston, Corpus, San Antonio, somewhere else, 100 miles away. I will now be able to take that literally 2 miles from Invista 10 miles from Ineos. So not only will they save money by not having to pay all that travel time, they'll be, they'll be able to haul more hauls per day. And they'll also be able to look at some of their internal landfills and possibly be able to close those down that they were running themselves to try and save money by not having to haul so far and bring it to us. So a huge financial gain for the city should be seen through this. So just wanted to talk about a few things. Our attorney, Jeff Reed with Lloyd Gosling in Austin, they do this for a living. This is the first one he's ever been a personal part of that we did not have any comments. If you'll remember, there's probably close to 6 months worth of comment period that we went through. Not a single comment came in by mail, by card, by email, which shows, you know, our commitment and Republic's commitment as well is being environmentally and visually responsible for our landfill. Longevity. This secures long-term value to the citizens of Victoria. Our worry was 15 years from now, if we have to haul to Houston, what are our rates going to be? To go 100 miles one way. We no longer have to worry about that. Our landfill will always be 10 miles from our city limits, unless we move city limits. Comparative services. This puts us in the leagues with the big boys. We're going to now be competing with Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Corpus Christi, not the little old Victoria landfill anymore. Additional revenue. Keep in mind, all the additional revenue that comes in this, and most of the revenue that comes from the landfill, I won't say all, I'll get corrected, falls to the general fund. So that's services for the city that this landfill expansion will help take care of for the next 100 years. And then economic development. As our port grows, as businesses look at coming here, Class 1 is a big thing for people. We now have it. You don't have to drive 100 miles. We have it right next door to your facility. So we expect that to be a huge asset for us when it comes to getting companies to look at Victoria for possible sites. So I got to acknowledge some people. It's been 6 years. I didn't do it myself, that's for sure. Council, especially the current and even some of the past members of council that supported this from day one, that's huge. If y'all remember, I had to go to county commissioners and we had to get them to pass a resolution to allow us to expand the landfill, which they were more than happy to do. John Johnston helped us immensely with the county with the floodplain administration stuff. Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission. I sat on that board of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. They had to pass a resolution, and then the main board had to pass a resolution allowing this to happen. Burns and McDonald, our consultants, Seth Cunningham, Jack Simmons, they were, between them and Lloyd Gosling, I mean, there's no way this could have happened. Jeff Reed from Lloyd Gosling, city management staff. Mike's been here 3 years. Every Thursday I get asked, where are we at with this? So, and then, you know, Jesus, we're shoving papers in front of him to sign, and sometimes he may not know what it is. Like at the last meeting we had, and I'm like, I just got to have this in the mail today. So we get those signatures and got it done. And then a lot of other staff, you know, Allison, my staff, Christy, Clarissa, you know, and then a lot of the other directors had pitched in and helped with advice for here and there. I appreciate all of that. But a big thanks needs to go to Gilbert. Gilbert was on this in day one when I brought him the idea. We talked about it. He said, let's go for it. We may have argued over money over a little bit over the last 6 years. But sometimes you win, sometimes he wins. But all in all, this is something, Mayor, I think will be extremely transformational for the city. Will make us hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars before it's all over with, that will be used in places that the money's needed. And with that, I do have, and I'll leave this for the mayor, it's just a framed part of the very first part of the permit with the signature. And that's it for me. I'll answer any questions.
I just want to say thank you for all the work that you've put into this project. I know it's taken a long time, but you hung in there and you fought for us, and we really appreciate that. Thank you, Darryl.
It's been a pleasure. It's been fun. It's been interesting, but it's been great.
No, it's a really, really big deal.
Don't talk like you're leaving.
I hope the advocate will, and New Center 25 will really pick up on this. It means a lot for the future of Victoria. I know you're working hard to try and get it done before the state of the city. I really wanted to highlight it this year as one of the major transformational projects that we have going on in the city. And it's your leadership that got us here, Darryl. And really, big round of applause again for Darryl and everybody else. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, but remember what I said. This was my last really big project. Thank you.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, we do have some additional announcements and reminders. We want to remind the public that the bicentennial ball opportunities for sponsors, underwriters, and table reservations are now available. For more information about the celebration scheduled for April 13th, 2024, and to stay up to date on the city's bicentennial plans, we ask the public to visit victoriatx200.com. Also, as a reminder, this Friday is an observed holiday, so all city non-emergency offices will be closed on Friday, November 10th in observance of Veterans Day. Offices will reopen at 8 a.m. on Monday, November 13th. However, the library will be open regular hours on Saturday, November 11th. On behalf of Municipal Court and in honor of Municipal Court Week, the Municipal Court will be hosting a free community resource fair for the public on Wednesday, November 8th from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. at the Victoria Community Center. On behalf of the Parks Department, the Sports Tourism Division within the department, and with support from CVB, has partnered with the Texas Flag Football Association, TFFA. I know some of you have seen the flyer and have wondered, what is TFFA? That's the Texas Flag Football Association. And they're hosting the 38th Fall Classic Shootout State Tournament here in Victoria at the Riverside Soccer Complex on November 18th and 19th. An estimated 35 to 45 teams are expected to participate, which would bring 300 to 350 players along with their friends and family into town. And as a previous participant of this state tournament back in the day, it's a really neat event, and I'm excited to see it in Victoria. On behalf of CVB, Explore Victoria is happy to announce the return of Yule of Shopping Victoria, launching this November 16th. The promotion features 50 local retailers this holiday shopping season. Earn entries to win fantastic prizes while exploring our incredible local shopping scene. No purchase is necessary to participate, and the public can learn more at explorevictoriatexas.com.
Great. I had one other thing. There is a full day of events, or at least half a day of events on Saturday, the 11th, to celebrate veterans, culminating in a parade starting at 10 a.m. But if you'll go to explorevictoriatexas.com and go to events for 2023, you can find all the day's activities that morning. Just wanted to point out that parade is happening. So,
Do you know the route?
yes, this year's parade will take the time-honored route of heading south on Main from the public library and turning right on St. Mary's Church onto Church Street, and then a backup bridge. Okay. So I know that seating is limited around De Leon Plaza with the construction, but there's plenty up and down Main and Bridge Street to watch the parade. All right. Well, thank you. We'll go on to public and employee recognitions. We have 2 proclamations tonight. First one's a Municipal Court Week proclamation. And also, before you say that, Ms. Hilbrick, I want to say if y'all missed the Java with the Judge yesterday, it was a great event. Thank y'all for hosting that. It was a good time to visit with municipal court staff and our judge. And so enjoyed being able to attend that. And with that, do the proclamation.
Whereas municipal courts play a significant role in preserving public safety and promoting quality of life in Texas, whereas more people come in contact with municipal courts than all other Texas courts combined, and public impression of the Texas judicial system is largely dependent upon the public's experience in municipal courts, whereas the City of Victoria hosts a municipal court, whereas state law authorizes a municipality to either appoint or elect a municipal judge for a term of office. The City of Victoria Municipal Court is a state court, and its judges are members of the state judiciary, whereas the procedures for the City of Victoria Municipal Court operations are set forth in the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure and other laws of the state of Texas. Whereas the City of Victoria is committed to the notion that our legal system is based on the principle that an independent, fair, and competent judiciary will interpret and apply the laws that govern us, and that judges and court personnel should comply with the laws and act in a manner that promotes public confidence in the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary. Whereas municipal court judges are not policymakers for the City of Victoria and are not bound by the law and the canons of judicial conduct and are bound by the law and canons of the judiciary conduct and are required to make decisions independent of the governing body of the city council, city officials, and employees, whereas the city council recognizes the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas contain procedural safeguards in criminal cases for all defendants, including indigent defendants, and supports the City of Victoria Municipal Court in complying with such legal requirements. Now therefore, I, Jeff Bauknight, Mayor of the City of Victoria, Texas, do hereby proclaim the week of November 6th through November 10th, 2023 as Municipal Court Week in recognition of their fair and impartial justice offered to our citizens by the Municipal Court of Victoria.
All right, next up, we have a GIS Day proclamation. Ms. Hilbrick?
Whereas the science of geographic information systems, or GIS, connects people and regions and systems, and whereas GIS is an important part of geography awareness, helping people collaborate and share knowledge so the systems we rely on work each day. And whereas the City of Victoria is committed to expanding GIS to the schools and general public in order to showcase real-world applications with GIS, and whereas having a dedicated day of GIS activities for students, citizens, and government leaders demonstrates the benefits of GIS in a unique and concentrated way. And whereas Geography Awareness Week is November 13th through 17th and promotes geographic literacy in schools. And whereas the National Geographic Information System, or GIS Day, is observed on November 15th, 2023. Now therefore, I, Jeff Bach, Mayor of the City of Victoria, Texas, do hereby proclaim November 15th, 2023 as GIS Day and urge all citizens to participate in GIS Day activities.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The City of Victoria GIS Division will be holding its 19th annual GIS Day. We will be going to 2 elementary schools this year. We'll be going to Taurus and Frickers Elementary, where we present to the 5th grade students. The students will have an opportunity to learn about geography and GIS through a PowerPoint presentation, along with a demonstration of our GIS website. And along, we're going to show them how to use the GPS unit and utilize with GIS. After the presentation, we will take the students outside where they will participate in a geocaching event where we will break them into groups, and each student will be able to find a geocache using the GPS units. After the presentation, we'll bring them aside where each student will get a GIS certificate, GIS certificate, along with a GIS goodie bag. We'd like to thank CVB, along with the Public Works Storm Sewer Division, for providing these items for our students. I'd like to acknowledge my staff, Jennifer and Aubrey, for being here also. If you have any questions, we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and now we have the November 2023 Keep Victoria Beautiful Business Beautification Award by Ms. Christy Youker. And after you finish this, will you do a Queen City update for us?
Yes, in fact, I think I'm doing that first.
Okay.
But I want to say that coming out of environmental services, the news today is the landfill. And it's great to have learned and been here when I got here the last few years of this process. It's not every day you get to really be in the middle and see all that happen, and it was really great. So I wanted to give a quick Queen City cleanup update as part of some of the other things we do in environmental services is our neighborhood cleanups, as you know. And we did our Phase 2 neighborhood cleanup just recently on the 21st. And we went to a little bit different area of Queen City. We went and we based out of Will Rogers Park, which I have to say, everybody was like, whoa, what a great park, just because it's so tucked in there. Quickly, our turnout was incredible. I feel like we just get more, and these just get better and better. We had 130 volunteers. You can see there are 70 bags of litter that we collect along the streets. 105 addresses were actually serviced, 13 tons of debris, which includes both tree limbs and bulky items, including appliances that we were able to pick up. 21 tires, 24 smoke detectors were installed by the fire department. Thank you very much for that. They were awesome. And flu shots were administered as well. We had 150 bags of compost donated, and we spread a lot of that over the park, and it smelled a little bit, but it's going to make that park look great. And that was thanks to Gardenville. They supplied that compost. I want to thank our sponsors. Armstrong Warehouse and Transfer provided the hot dogs and the food. HEB, Del Papa Distributing, the Box Coffee Bar, Lowe's, Appliance Pro, Wade & Carter Show, and Gardenville. And I don't have on there, but it's Waste Management. I can't forget them. They always give us the potties, which are very important. So great turnout. I also wanted to emphasize that we did start our Queen City Park survey at this cleanup, and we'll have more updates on that as well. We're getting surveys out to area residents on what they would like to see with that park. And we kicked it off at this cleanup, and we've got more surveys out. We're doing that through Mike and Keisha through the City Manager's Department. Okay, so on to our Beautification Award winner for November, and I will bring up Meredith Bird for that.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is always a pleasure to be here in front of you guys. So tonight we're going to celebrate Greg Spears Realty. As you can see from the photos, this is a really impressive little property. It's now sold on Airline in between Ben Wilson and Ben Jordan. And so the next time you're driving down that stretch of Airline, make sure that you take a look. The building is in fantastic shape. The yard, the landscaping is in wonderful shape. And then to top it off, they have a public art piece that Mr. Spears commissioned himself from about 5 years ago from St. Joe, from which he is an alumnus. And so we have not only keeping Victoria beautiful in the vein of keeping up with the property and really putting your best face forward, but then we have the added element of turning around and supporting your community, supporting the school that you graduated from, encouraging art students with a blank canvas, which, you know, if you're an artist, what could be a better gift, right? And he even covered the supplies for the installation of the mural. So anyway, all of that is to say that I am very happy to present Mr. Greg Spears with tonight's Business Beautification Award.
Well, we're happy to do it. I'm very grateful for the award, and people take notice. I've got St. Joe's coming this fall, winter, to update the murals there on the wall and everything, so we'll spice it up and have a little bit extra added to it and everything. So anyhow, y'all do such a great job keeping our city looking good at all the intersections and entrances and everything, so it's nice to be a little part of it too, to add to it. Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Spears, for the pride you take in your property and your city. We
Yes,
really
sir.
appreciate it.
All right, appreciate it.
Back to you, Mr. Garza.
All right, we have a few more employee recognitions. Not short, I don't know why I was gonna say short congratulations. I don't know if there's a difference between short and tall congratulations, but congratulations to Mike 18, I think he's in the room, for successfully completing the coursework and testing required to earn his Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt certificate. We recently attended the ICMA conference, and one of the options was to go through this process. But we're proud of Mike and confident that his accomplishment will positively impact the success of our organization. He also this year earned the Credential Manager designation as a reminder, and now has the Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt certification. So congrats, Mike, on completing that. I hope he's in here somewhere. I'm sure Mark loves that. That's right. We're always talking about performance metrics and data. Anyway, also Maria Bell, our court's operations supervisor, was awarded the Distinguished Service Award by the Texas Court Clerks Association at their annual conference banquet on Tuesday, October 31st, 2023 in Georgetown. The Distinguished Service Award was awarded to Maria for her dedication and commitment to her professional growth and her educational and leadership endeavors. I'm not sure if she's here. Yep. There she is. Thank you for standing up. There she is. Congratulations. Thank you all so much for your dedication to professional development. We certainly love and appreciate when our employees go above and beyond to better themselves, which ultimately betters the organization. And speaking of awards, we recently found out, and it came out in today's newsletter, that our Communication Public Affairs Department, in partnership with the Police Department and the Public Library, earned 4 statewide awards from the Texas Association of Telecommunications Officers and Advisors. The awards were in the following categories: Public Health and Safety for Halloween PSA. That included Sergeant Adam Banda. He's not included in this picture, but he was a big part of it. Lauren Moe and Senior Police Officer John Turner. We received 3rd place in that category. We received 1st place in the magazine format category for Outside the Newsroom. That primarily involves Ashley, AJ, and Sam from our communications department. 3rd place in the Arts and Entertainment for VPL Jams, which takes place, of course, at the library. And also, we were included as an honorable mention in the profile of an organization for the One Team with Purpose for Our Community video that was put together by staff to help just remind us all why we serve the public. And so it's becoming a common occurrence as well. On top of municipal court's common occurrence, now it's becoming a common occurrence that our communication department receives awards. And I think that just speaks volume to Ashley's leadership. She had to step away, but she deserved a lot of the credit for the hard work that her team and really the whole organization has put together more consistent quality videos and information out to the public. And so a big round of applause for everybody involved with those awards. And lastly, congratulations to Keep Victoria Beautiful again in our environmental services assistant director, Christy Youker, for the feature in the November Texas Town and City magazine about the growth of our neighborhood cleanups. She literally just talked about it today, so I think it's appropriate to highlight the fact that now all of Texas, through this magazine, is learning about our focus on community parents and community cleanups, and so definitely very proud of her leadership. The article is called Community Involvement Transforms Keep Victoria Beautiful Neighborhood Cleanups into Resource Fairs. And you may or may not have had picked up on this, but Officer Turner is on the front cover. That is one of our own that's included in the front cover of Texas Town and City, which is a publication put out by the Texas Municipal League, and all local government officials receive across the state. So super proud of their work. Also, Sam Hankins deserves a lot of credit. She puts these pieces together, and I know that TML loves her work, and so I hope they don't take her from us. But the whole team deserves, again, another round of applause for their work in our community involvement. And that is all I have, Mayor.
Great. All right, thank you. We'll go into items from council. I just have some thank yous. The youth hunt that the Parks holds was held this past weekend. And I wanted to thank the Parks Department, specifically Mike Etienne, who's filling in as our Parks Director, Elijah Ramos and Stephen Gallagher, also from the Parks Department. Brian Knief from the Police Department did a lot of work going out there and checking feeders and making sure everything was up to snuff before the hunt, a couple weeks before. Port of Victoria is a great partner, Sean Stibich over there at the port, and I appreciate Mr. Crocker helping us out, getting that partnership going with the Port of Victoria as opposed to Riverside Park. We had 5 youths, 3 young ladies and 3 young men that went out there and had a successful harvest. We partner with Texas Parks and Wildlife and Texas Wildlife Association and come up with the Texas Youth Hunting Program. And they come out there to administer the hunt. This takes a bunch of volunteers, and a lot of the volunteers came from the National Wildlife Turkey Foundation this year. And they got to coordinate with Mayor Pro Tem Young and go to Invista. And went through the wetlands and celebrate their 25 years on Saturday as well. So thank you for doing that proclamation for them and being part of that youth hunt as well.
Thank you for having me. There were some impressive young adults or kids and a very successful hunt from the pictures I saw.
Yes.
So they were excited. It was I think, just a wonderful weekend for them.
And hopefully, fingers crossed, no promises, we'll get to do another one maybe in January. So hope to work towards that, but thank you to everybody that was involved in that. I know it's a great undertaking, but I think it's a great opportunity for our youth to learn many aspects of outdoor life and get away from screens for a while, so.
Yes.
With that, if there's no other items from council, we will go into citizens communication. And we're gonna start with Mrs. Edwards. Good to see you, Ms. Edwards. You can come on up. Please, everyone, remember to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Wilma Edward, 3503 Cadiz, Victoria, Texas. I'm a citizen in Victoria, Texas. And I'm coming just to remind you the thing that y'all promised us has not been done. And this in the park in Silver City, nothing's been done there. I see the park direction, the park, person goes down, I guess he looks and come back. You notice I live on 3503 Cadiz. The street on Prince Street was supposed to have been fixed. Nothing's been done. I live on 3503 Cadiz, that's why I know all these things.
Which street was that again?
3503 Cadiz.
No, ma'am.
Prince
Street, you said?
Prince.
Prince?
This is October. I don't know what happened to all the apartments that's supposed to be placed next door to our church. We've been looking forward for that. Those apartments, y'all promised to have those. That's on Odom Street. I live right in the same neighborhood. I just come to remind you, because I get all the calls, I get all the information that they need, and I refuse to come, but I decide I guess I'm going to have to get up and do the thing that somebody else is not doing. Please, at least recognize us over there. You know, the last time I came to the meeting, I think we was on North Street. I think my mayor remembers that, when I was talking and I was told to wrap it up. Mayor, city manager, I'm gonna leave again, because I don't want you to tell me to wrap it up. I didn't have anything to wrap it up.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Etienne, would you mind just walking out with her and giving her an update on Odom Street? Ms. Edwards? Mr. Etienne has he'll step out with you and just give you an update on Odom Street apartments, and we'll get something to you on Prince Street as well. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Now we have Mrs. Townsend.
Mayor, City Council members, wanted to take just a few moments to introduce myself. My name is Rosemary Townsend. I'm fairly new to Victoria. I've been here for 3 years. I love the city, and I'm very excited about all the things that are happening. Professionally, I spent 35 years at Baylor University, and my last position was Director of Community Partnerships and Service. I have pretty extensive experience on both governing and advisory boards, good bit of knowledge on strategic partnerships and public-private partnerships. As an applicant for the Library Advisory Board, I hope that some of my skill sets could be of assistance, but mostly I wanted to let you all know how very excited I am about the upcoming bicentennial and all the wonderful things that I believe this city can accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend. Ms. Buchanan.
I finally figured out I don't have to introduce myself because you call me up by name, and I think you're pretty used to me. I just wanted to come and thank the subcommittee. You guys kind of didn't know you were going to have that job, but thanks for qualifying me for tonight's vote to fill in one of the positions on our library board. If I'm chosen to be appointed, I'll bring my experience, my education, and my history of successful community service to the table. I enjoy working with others, and I'm an active listener. As you can tell from my notes just from City Council, I listen, I pay attention, I make notes so that I can participate well in a discussion. I plan to contribute positively and productively to all of the advisory board discussions and recommendations to support our public library if I'm chosen. Thank you again for your consideration. You'd think I wouldn't be nervous. Gosh.
Okay, next we have Ms. Patek.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. As I said the last time when I was up here, I'm a grandmother of 12. I love them all very much. I also love to learn and I love to read. My grandchildren are all in different stages of reading. Some of them are being read to, some of them are learning to read, and some are reading to learn. Good books, materials, and activities are always on my mind. When I'm looking for a book and our library doesn't have it, I request it through our online system that we have at our library. 9 times out of 10, it'll either be found through interlibrary loan or the library chooses to purchase it for its patrons. Ms. Berger has done a great job in this. I appreciate her staff, and I appreciate them getting the books that I request in the library, and all patrons request. I'm sure she does it for others as well. I love to recommend book series that our library carries for children to their parents and grandparents. Here are a few I like to recommend. The A to Z series, the Horse Diaries, the Dog Diaries. Now, if you want to learn about dogs, you need to read the Dog Diaries. If you want to learn about St. Bernards, there's a great book in that series about St. Bernards. It's very good. Also, another series is The Imagination Station, which is a historical fiction series. The Dead Sea Squirrels, which is hilarious. And the newest series that I've started to read is the Campground Kids series. And it's a series that is set in national parks. And there are mysteries to be solved in these national parks. They're a lot of fun. And that's what I think reading should be, especially at a young age. Please don't think that all I read is children's books. But I do pre-read a lot, and I enjoy it very much. I have a passion for seeing my grandchildren and all children have good quality materials to shape their young hearts and minds. I ask for your vote for reappointment to the Library Advisory Board, and I want to thank you for your time and your sacrifice, and for all that you do for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Olson.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Catherine Olson, and I am a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 9. Since Kay said that about her grandkids, I thought I should mention mine as well. I have applied to be on the library board. I actually applied last year and thought after not being elected that that was the end of it. Then recently someone called and said the library board would be looking for more members, and did I want my name to stay on the list. I agreed that I would be more than happy to serve, and so here I am. I'm an avid reader and am interested in being involved and working on the library board if chosen. I have a love of the library and enjoy helping community programs for kids. A few months back, I organized a book reading, and the library staff was so accommodating and actually moved us to the Bronte room because we had a larger than expected crowd. And a fun time was had by all, and I was grateful to all of the library staff for helping. I believe the library provides so much more than just books: a quiet place, a calm place, a place where individuals can read stories and catch a vision of change that they want to see in their lives and the lives of others whom they love. A place that can produce overcomers. Who would you say has the need of becoming an overcomer? A select few? I say, who doesn't? I stand before you being an overcomer many times over in this life, and I don't think life's challenges for me are over, and my overcoming days are not over either. The books that I read show me how to survive in every aspect of life. Some are inspirational fiction novels. I read those at the end of the day when I'm trying to lay down those things that would probably keep me awake. The name inspirational is a good fit. The struggles are real, and the characters have usually come through the fire better off for having been there. Such is life. If we avoid all fires, we will never be refined into who we were intended to be by the one who gave us life. The library can and should offer many books to foster positive outcomes, specifically in the lives of the suffering and the children. This is our obligation and duty. So I promise to be thoughtful and considerate in collaborating with others on the library board if I am chosen. Thank you so much for considering me for this position.
Thank you. Ms. Lapis?
Hello. Good evening, Mayor Bauknight and members of the Victoria City Council. My name is Angela Lapis, a proud resident living just down the road in the historic townsite of Victoria, Texas. And I am seeking your considered vote for a position on the advisory board to the Victoria Public Library. At the previous October City Council meeting, several of us spoke of our individual willingness to serve on this advisory board, listing our bona fides, our histories and relationships with the Victoria Public Library, and the importance of a strong public library system to sustain access to educational resources, be they literary, audio, or visual, and thereby help and fuel the upward trajectory of this great city. As someone who currently serves on national and local committees centered on policy creation and implementation, as well as serving on other separate advisory boards whose charge is to provide the necessary ancillary support for the respective committees at large, I understand the separate but important role of an advisory board in support of a higher level committee proper. And so I stand here tonight, Mayor Bauknight and members of the City Council, seeking your considered vote to the advisory board of the Victoria Public Library by giving assurances that I will work in full advisory support of the Victoria Public Library in whatever capacity they would require of me. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Sisson?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Ashley Sisson. I have applied to be reappointed to the Library Advisory Board, and I thank you for your consideration. I thank the subcommittee for their extra consideration and selecting me to be one of the final candidates. A lot of what I'm going to say is what I said last time, but just re-emphasizing my love for libraries in general and our Victoria Public Library specifically. I would be a different person than who I am today without the support of public libraries. They've helped me grow as a person. They've helped me become a better parent. They've helped me become a better person with the materials that I have had access to through the library. I've learned a lot about librarianship in the past 3 years as a board member, and I feel like I'm well qualified to serve another term. I use the library. I use it all the time. I go to the library to go to programs, to select materials, books and CDs and movies. I will go to the library to people watch or to read or to craft. I've knit in the library before. So I use the library services. I attend programs. I use it for myself, you know. It's a wonderful community resource, and I know that through my own personal experience. As an adult who uses the library, I feel that I would provide an important perspective on the board, and I'd like the opportunity to continue providing that perspective. I thank you all again for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Von der Rohe.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Just wanted to thank the Victoria Police Department for catching the robbers. They robbed a convenience, a supermarket in the Lone Tree Mall area and everything. And they used guns and masks and everything. And, you know, I was just hoping, you know, if they are convicted, if they could give them 99 years and $10,000 fine each, and that by the time they have a parole hearing in 30 years, everyone will be retired and you don't have to worry about it and stuff. You know, just lock the key and don't give them no chance. Sometimes I think, you know, people are just too soft on crime in Victoria. And I would like to thank the detective for making a drug bust in Queen City Park. There's always drug busts there. October the 20th is when he got him a 1 to 4 grams possession group 2. That's the more dangerous drug. Sentencing guidelines are 2 to 20 for dealing, and just for having it is 1 to 10. I would like to see no more probation, no more deferred adjudication. Just lock them up, give them the maximum, you know, amount, because I'm tired of hearing problems with drugs at Queen City Park. It's the only park where the city of Victoria took away their playground and took away the barbecue pits, you know, to keep kids out of there. And I can't see any positive things about Queen City Park, you know, to keep it. I've never seen a city council member bring their grandkids to Queen City Park to play or anything, you know. And why don't they? Because they're smart. They know better, you know. And I would also like to thank code enforcement for taking care of 1302 East Rio Grande. That's where it was tent city. They had tents in the front, they had tents in the back. And when they seen those lights with code enforcement, they thought they were the cops. So they packed up the tents and left. I seen one guy urinating in the side in the daytime. And then there was a couple people sitting right where he urinated, and the owner is refusing to take care of it. And the car wash is over by the Salvation Army. The owner isn't taking care of it. And code enforcement can't be going there every day, you know, to take care of it. But anyway, thanks and have a good evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Von der Rohe. Mr. Garcia.
Good evening, Councilman and Mayor. Yeah, I'm just here to try to appeal the case of my parents' home. I said I was unaware of the whole situation Me and my brother haven't talked in over 4 years. I've had no contact with him. And when he finally reached out to me, I said, wait a minute, what's going on? You know, I figured, hey, you're on top of everything, you know, why you coming to me now? So the only thing I'm asking for is I can fix it. I just need time. You know, I'm trying to address the issues that we have, and I'm trying to address the issues that I got going forward. But all I'm asking for is a little bit of time.
I'm sorry, it's not an interactive citizens communication.
I said, this is the first time for me, so, you
Okay.
know, I'm not familiar with the deal, because I said, I've never been to, you know, it's just something that came up, and, you know, I wanted to try to do something.
Okay, thank you.
That item is up for discussion later on the agenda.
Yes, there. Yeah. Mr. Rand.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Like my husband was saying, I'm here about our house on 1108 Santa Rosa. Like you said, we were unaware of the problems. Now that we are gonna do the repairs that y'all are asked of us. We were asked to tear down the back half of the house that was standing, and we did so, as y'all requested. And going forward, we would not have a problem doing the repairs. We are currently looking for someone to contract to do that, if y'all will allow us to do so. We're intending to repair the foundation, the roof, the fencing, removing all of the debris, as we've already been working on. Also, to paint the house in all one color, so it wouldn't be an eyesore. And in the interior, we're looking at doing the floors and all of the plumbing and re-looking at the, getting an electrician to come in there and see if there's anything that needs to be done in there as well. Anything that y'all ask us to do, we will do it. We would like y'all to consider giving us the time to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll close citizens communication. And we will go into, we have no items with public hearings tonight, so we'll go into the consent agenda. Ms. Hilbrick, will you help us out?
Yes, sir. Item D1 is the adoption of minutes of the regular meeting held on October 17th, 2023. Item D2 is an ordinance amending Chapter 10, Article 2, Division 3 of the Victoria City Code pertaining to the junk vehicle administrative process. This item is on the second and third reading. Item D3 is a resolution approving a variance to Section 5-149A1A1 for property located at 2501 North Main Street in order to allow for the approval of a sign permit to erect an additional freestanding monument sign on the property. Item D4 is a resolution approving a variance to Section 21-82A1 and 2 for properties located at 1210 and 1212 Julia Street in order to allow the platting of two single-family residential lots with lot sizes below the minimum requirement and lot widths below the minimum requirement. Item D5 is a resolution approving a second amendment to the professional services agreement with Freese and Nichols Incorporated for the engineering design services for the Ben Wilson Corridor Improvement Project in the amount of $40,000, bringing the total amount of the contract to $926,723. Item D6 is a resolution approving the purchase of one 2024 Freightliner 114 SD with the Sewer Equipment Company of America 900 Eco 12-yard combination sewer cleaner body from Houston Freightliner in the amount of $515,617.99. Item D7 is a resolution approving the purchase of two Lucas 3 chest compression devices for the Victoria Fire Department in the amount of $52,378.08. And item D8 is a resolution approving the change order to the Riverside Duck Pond Project to Lester Contracting Incorporated, the amount of $82,750 for the total amount of $1,794,701.
I move we adopt the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to present the consent agenda as read. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E1.
Item E1 is a resolution approving the FY 2023-2024 Victoria Sales Tax Development Corporation budget.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we'll be presenting the proposed budget for the Victoria Sales Tax Development Corporation for fiscal year 2024, which was approved by the Sales Tax Board in October. Is this one? Okay. All right, starting off, we're looking at our beginning fund balance. You'll see there it's $15.8 million for fiscal '24. You'll notice it is less than last year, but if you go through the rest of the '23 budget, you'll see that we had anticipated drawing down our fund balance to about $11.5 million. So we actually ended up finishing the year about $4 million over budget, which was primarily driven by revenue. We had a record year for our sales tax receipts. Our interest income was also up very high just due to the current rate environment. And then we also had some projects from prior years that closed out under budget that helped prop up that number. Looking at our revenues, we've got our sales tax receipts budgeted at $9.1 million, which is about $428,000 over last year's budget. We're still maintaining a conservative approach in budgeting for our sales tax receipts. You'll know over the past several years, we've always had some volatility in that, with that going up and down just due to various economic factors. We do anticipate has seen an increase in interest income this year. That's a lot of that's solely tied to our Fed funds rate. A lot of our money is invested in overnight funds. So right now that's bringing in 5.5% at that rate, and that rate's projected not to be cut until middle of 2024 if it does happen. So overall, we're looking at $9.5 million in total revenues, or an increase of $705,000 over last year's budget. I'm just going to look at our expenditures just at a high level. Danielle will go over a lot of these highlights in just a moment. We're budgeting $12.9 million in expenditures. You can see the breakdown here as long as the various increases. And then for our ending fund balance, we're budgeting that to come in at $12.5 million overall. And I'll turn it over to Danielle now. She'll go over the budget highlights.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're going to briefly run through the budget highlights, starting with the Economic Development Division, which is my department. Wanted to note that in that line item, it's being funded 50-50 by the Sales Tax Corporation and HOP funds, which increased the allocation from BSDC in fiscal year '24. In the Victoria Transportation line item, there was $150,000 allocated for a transit study for the Victoria Transit. Funding was allocated for the DeLeon Plaza expansion change order number 3, which is the next item on tonight's agenda, and I'll dive into that next, of $630,000. We increased the amount for a building improvement grant incentive for downtown folks. We have a facade grant, and now we have a building improvement grant. All in all, that came out to $200,000 on that line item. Under workforce development, we have $150,000 budgeted for workforce development programs and projects within the region. The Port of Victoria continues to receive $1 million in support of their rail project. This will be the final payment for their agreement. Funding was allocated to support the new public safety headquarters in the amount of $2.5 million over a course of several years. And wanted to make a quick note. Earlier this year, we sat down with a subcommittee with the Sales Tax Board, and we developed a new plan of work. And with that plan of work, we created these buckets or line items in the budget that align with the plan of work and with the Newmark strategic plan. So all of these line items that were presented tonight are in line with the plan of work and the Newmark strategic plan. And then some other items on there, I'll just run through these real quick. Utility and street projects, Rosenquist sewer line extension, Mockingbird Mill and Overlay, Ben Jordan Mill and Overlay, Delmar Drive Mill and Overlay, Odom Street Mill and Overlay, East Larkspur Mill and Overlay, and Lone Tree Drainage Project. I'll let that sit there, and then that should be everything for this presentation. I'll open it up for questions.
Just really quickly, I'd like to add, I realized as they were running through the presentation that there was one item that was also in the budget that I think it's appropriate for everybody to be aware of, in that when this budget was first presented to VSCDC, we weren't sure where the conversation with the county was headed related to the airport. And so we did account for and allocate $250,000 in fiscal year '24 to potentially go towards any type of airport project. VSCDC has approved and supported airport studies in the last couple of years. We went ahead and left that in there, simply not knowing what the future holds in relation to just the relationship between the city and the county related to the airport, or even any requests that might come to VSCDC. So we prefer to leave the $250,000 in there. If it doesn't get used, no big deal. It simply just, doesn't get used. So I just wanted to convey to y'all that there is an amount in there for that as well.
I remember seeing it, but I don't see it on this page right here.
It's under the transportation category. So you notice how the transportation category went up $400,000?
Okay.
That's because we added the 250 for the airport,
I
and then
remember there was a
the money for
breakdown.
the study. Now, I also will say that the money for the route study is in there as a as a backup, if you will. We are working with the Regional Planning Commission, and Michael Ada is working on pursuing a grant that potentially they can receive to do the route study. So the funds we have allocated could potentially serve as a match, or worst case scenario, we can consider proceeding paying for that route. We recognize through conversations with VSTC and other economic development stakeholders that looking and assessing the route is something that is needed for community development, economic development, et cetera. And so hence the allocation.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item E1.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve item E1. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E2.
Item E2 is a resolution approving a change order number 3 to the De Leon Plaza expansion project with Logger Companies Incorporated in the amount of $562,750.04 for a total contract amount of $5,541,675.26.
All right, I'm going to try to paint a full picture for you folks tonight on where we are at with this project by giving a little background history first. As you may recall, the De Leon Plaza expansion was awarded back in June of 2023 with the original amount to Logger Companies at $4.5 million. We then came back to council with a change order number 1 to include 3 bid alternates in the amount of $304,691. That was for the LED area lighting, including the trellis off of the restroom, and then also refurbishing all of the historic lamp posts around the plaza. Change order 2 was a change order that we did in-house, and it was to refurbish the bandstand by repairing wood, the brass railing along the back for the ADA ramp, and some repainting. And then that leads us to today with the change order number 3, and the cost was presented to the Sales Tax Board back in October, as you saw in the presentation for the budget. So we're going to dive into change order number 3. What does that include? That includes replacing the rotten wood finial on top of the bandstand for $14,662. When we started to look and assess the structure, the bandstand structure, when we got to the top and the decorative scroll work, we realized that it was rotten and that it needed to be completely repaired or replaced. So that's why you see that number here. We are looking to have that replaced and it look exactly the same and be out of solid pieces of wood. We, as you may recall, most of us met, council and staff on site to look at the sidewalks that lead up to Prosperity Bank or Constitution side and the sidewalks around the bandstand. And that price of $88,503 is to upgrade that remainder sidewalk, replace the irrigation on that south half of the plaza, and then also resod the south half of the plaza so that with new grass. Along with the larger ticket item, the fountain feature, we had to rough in some of the fountain work. So rough in the plumbing and space for electrical conduit. So that's the $10,529. Then we have the fountain water feature with underwater LED lighting and composite grading for $406,332.09. Now, This whole change order encompasses 16 items. 12 of those are miscellaneous items that we've have recommended along the way of $42,722. With the additional $562,750.04, the new contract amount will be $5.5 million. So now I'm going to show you the new renderings. If you may recall, we had an amendment to the Freese & Nichols contract, and we asked them to provide some updated renderings and drawings of what the plaza will look like with the water fountain feature over by the restroom. This is an updated aerial of what De Leon Plaza will look like when complete. Here's a closer look at the water fountain feature over by the restroom. It's 2 basins on either side with those spurts of water and some LED lighting underneath. You can also see the LED lighting structure there. That is that aerial lighting or additional lighting that we had from the bid alternates that we added in. Here's an even closer look.
Danielle, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are the umbrellas going to be permanent structures, or are they going to be removable?
No, we will be able to remove them in the event if we have high winds.
Okay.
Here is that updated nighttime. And a quick note there, we added in a more accurate picture of what the statues will look like. And we are also going to have to change the wording of De Leon Plaza. We'll have to put a space between the E and the L to make it more correct. But you can see that we have those statues in there. And the Christmas tree, of course, will still be able to fit in between the 2 fountains over there by the restroom. And then here's a view from the stage during a holiday event. All right, and I do have with me tonight Brian Jansen, who's the project manager with Freese & Nichols. He's going to give y'all a brief update on where we are on the project and milestones, and so show some really good construction photos.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's good to be back here in front of you to give you an update on this really exciting project that we're hitting a bunch of milestones very quickly, so that's exciting. I know we've got kind of an important date coming up in the future, so everybody is working very furiously to get this project wrapped up for you guys. So if you haven't been by the site yet, let me just give you kind of an update on what has been accomplished. Most of the underground utility work has largely been completed and is in place. We were fortunate to receive some of the heavy civil items such as manholes a lot earlier than what was anticipated, so that work was able to be done sooner rather than later. We are still working with AEP to coordinate on our new electrical service for this and the refeed of the existing 400 amp panel that's in the plaza right now. The plan is to sort of remove all of that electrical equipment that was near or was behind the Six Flags Monument and to put that into an enclosure to really make it a lot more aesthetically pleasing, but also a lot more safe enclosure for that service. And then the new 800 amp service that will be feeding the restroom building and all the stage and all of the power needs of that. We've had several conversations with the folks at AEP, and I think we have a path forward on that. The interior and the perimeter CMU blocking has been largely complete for the restroom building. The next step there is they're going to have to do some waterproofing and covering of the parapet wall, and then they will be setting the roof trusses shortly thereafter, which I believe are already on site. So I think our contractor anticipates that we should have a dried-in building fairly early into December. So that's good news there. And then I was at the site today doing some site-related things, and they are starting on the cast stone work on the restroom building. They're setting the arches first on either end. It looks fantastic. They're doing a great job. And then we should be seeing brick masonry going up fairly shortly. But most of the masons are still trying to get the large pillar walls up for the pavilion. So we're kind of shifting crews back and forth between the two buildings right now. The foundation has been poured for the pavilion. That was poured last Thursday, and it was saw cut almost immediately after they were able to walk on it. It's got a nice geometric sort of a diamond grid cut into it. And that has been protected with plastic and plywood because they are, as of today, they're setting up scaffolding. So they're going to be going up, 15, 20 feet, something like that, to get all of that masonry up. And then the structural steel is on site and will be ready to install once the masonry work is complete. And then with the addition of in terms of schedule here, with the addition of the new water feature scope that you just saw the images for, we're having to sort of hold off on a few things that we thought we would probably already be wrapped up by now, but our contractor is estimating that this will probably add about 30 days to the project schedule with a new completion date of March 18th is what we have right now. So the plan is to get as much of this done as possible before that date, if the weather is cooperative and everything sort of comes in as it's scheduled to do. We still think we're in good shape for having this thing open and usable in time for the bicentennial celebration. And just one other thing I'd like to say from the perspective of the design team. I can't give enough of accolades to the contractor and the subcontractors that you guys have on this project. Logger has really taken this bull by the horns. They have been communicating very effectively. We have a wonderful project manager over there at Logger, and the work that the subs have exhibited to date has been fantastic. My sub-consultants on the design side have commented as to the effect of that as well. So I just wanted to take a minute to kind of publicly recognize them because they're knocking it out of the park so far. And then we just have a few photos. If you haven't been out there, I don't really want to say go out there because you're liable to have a big old block fall on your head or something like that. But anyways, these are some shots. This was last Thursday, so in the morning they poured the pavilion with the steps, and then once they were able to walk on it, they started in on the saw cutting. And right now it's all covered in plastic and plywood to protect it. And then I wish I had a photo from today because this building looks a little bit different. We've gained a few more courses at CMU, and like I said, they are starting on the cast stone masonry work, and that's exciting to see. And then this right here on the right-hand side, this is some of that pre-work that Danielle alluded to. We've got all the conduit stubs through the slab and ready to go, pending the council's decision on this change order. So that was all done kind of by our water feature consultant and our electrical folks and Logger. So we're ready. And then, like I alluded to, most of the stormwater lines and everything are in place. I was there today. They've got grates on, temporary grates on right now for, site safety issues. And then this is the steel here for the pavilion, which is on site. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions. I think this was my last slide, right? Yeah. Or Danielle or I would be happy to entertain any questions if anybody has anything. Or
we do plan on scheduling another site visit opportunity for all of you to see the site probably later this month, early December, once a little bit more progress, so you can see for yourself firsthand.
You can get a sense of scale. I walked along that fence line between 1 O'Connor and the stage, pavilion. You can get a sense of the size of that stage. It's generous. Yes.
And one of the other things that I know a lot of our city clients choose to do, and we might talk about this, Jesus, is scheduling a topping out ceremony where we could, maybe get the council down for that. Because that's going to be a big deal when all the steel structure is up.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update. All right, we have item E2 before us.
I move we adopt item E2 as presented.
I second it.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further questions, comments? I got one. We're not anticipating any other changes. Right, and I don't think we could accommodate them at this point either, correct?
Sure.
And meet the timeline?
No, yeah, any big changes? Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E3.
Item E3 is a resolution hearing an appeal of the Building and Standards Commission's demolition order for 1108 East Santa Rosa.
Good evening, Council. So the Code Enforcement Department first initiated a substandard building case for this property at 1108 East Santa Rosa in January of this year, 2023. With no contact from the property owner, they initiated an actual case to be presented to the Building Standards Commission in September, where they ran title and notified all the interested parties, where again they had really no minimal contact from the property owner. There was a junk vehicle on site that was cleaned up. So in preparation of taking this case to the Building Standards Commission, they did get an administrative warrant on October 5th, and I have some photos from both yesterday and October 5th that show the condition of this property. But the Building Standards Commission did order that the property is over 50% of the value, beyond damage to over 50% of the value of the property, and found that the building structure, any part thereof, is liable to partially or fully collapse. The structure, any part, is maintained in violation of different various building codes and applicable ordinances. The non-supporting coverings of walls, ceilings, roofs, or floors are 50% or more damaged or deteriorated. The structure, any part, has been damaged by vandalism, water, or other cause to such an extent that it's become dangerous to the public health, safety, and welfare, and that the structure is a fire hazard, substandard, dilapidated, or otherwise unfit for human habitation and is a hazard to the public health, safety, and welfare. So I'll just run through these pictures because, of course, pictures do a lot better than what I'm ever able to explain. So from the street view, I don't think you get a sense of the substandard of quite how substandard the building is. But as you dig a little bit deeper, you start to see, and these are the photos taken yesterday. And these are the pictures from when the administrative warrant was issued. So that junk vehicle has been abated, or has been removed by the property owner, but other than that, the property is still in pretty bad condition, and in our opinion, beyond repair. So staff does recommend that the council uphold this Building and Standards Commission order to demolish the structure. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I also have, of course, Rick Madrid and Stephen Solis here, if there's any more technical questions that may come up.
Has the folks that came tonight, have they talked to you at all, given you any idea of a timeline or what they might be planning on doing?
No, so as you know, before the Building and Standards Commission meeting, it is requested that the property owners, if they want to repair, submit a detailed plan to address all the violations. There's been minimal contact with our State Code Enforcement Office. I believe Mr. Garcia's brother did attend the meeting and spoke to the commission in the public hearing portion. But as far as the request with all the notices for those detailed plans, we haven't received anything of that nature.
How long has the property been vacant?
It's been vacant since at least January when the investigation started. I couldn't tell you how long it was vacant since they started their initial case, which, like I said, they started the case in January of 2023, and it's been vacant since before then. But I imagine it's been vacant longer based off of the condition. Although you never know, once water damage starts to occur, it can rapidly deteriorate a property as well.
Julie, there was the owner that came up and spoke. They removed some back portion of the house. Didn't they say they demolished a back portion, removed a car? I'm just trying to get it ascertained when somebody else got involved, if they're doing, work worthwhile. Just trying to understand how much has been done.
So these are photos that were taken yesterday. I do believe there may be some of the very small lean-to portion might have been cleaned up, but overall, as far as the scale, do you have more information?
So, hi, I'm the code enforcement officer, code enforcement supervisor. From what we understand, we were in contact with the brother, who's also owner, and the portion, from what we understood, the back portion of that property, which you could see on the second picture on the right.
Yes, sir.
That is a portion that was demolished. We were under the impression that it was the brother, the property owner that we have been in contact with. He did call us in February that he was going to be demolishing a portion of the structure.
Who owns it?
It's two brothers. It's the Benito Garcia and Dionisio Garcia.
And when we send out notifications, both are notified?
We send it out to what's according to the Victoria Central Appraisal District, which, from what we understand, it's the brother who lives in Austin. So that's what's listed.
Just for clarification, the substandard notices first go out to appraisal district, but for the actual Building Standards Commission meeting, we run title on all of those, and so we notify everyone that we can find that comes back on that title report for the actual Building Standards Commission.
So that was the 1024 hearing?
Mm-hmm.
And at that 1024 hearing, when they are notified of this hearing, are they made aware that what we have highlighted in our packet, and I'll read it out loud for everyone, the ordered action must be accomplished within 30 calendar days from the date of this order received by the owner, unless the owner submits a detailed plan and time schedule for the work at the hearing, establishing that the work cannot reasonably be completed within 30 days because of the scope and complexity of the work. Now, that work that's the detailed plan and time schedule, that's just the work for demolishing it, right?
Right. So in the actual notice, in the packet is this chart that lists all of the violations. So the
Correct.
first notice that says, we are going to have a Building Standards Commission meeting because we find your building substandard. These are the list of items that are substandard. Here's the date and the location and the time. And if you want to repair it, please submit a detailed plan and contact our office, and we'll work through.
And that's in the notice for the hearing
That's
to
in the
both,
notice.
to all title owners?
Everyone that we can find on the title. And then the actual building commission order is with the highlights that you just read, and that's actually the commission ordering it to be demolished. And yes, the work being referenced to that is for the work to be.
At the hearing.
Is for the demolition work.
And when we send that out, do we send it out certified?
We post it.
Yeah, we posted,
Put it in the newspaper, publish it in the newspaper, post it, and then just regular mail, the actual order.
And is that what is required by law?
Mhm.
Are both owners living in town?
No, one lives in Houston, one lives in Austin.
And only one was notified.
Only one was notified, never got nothing.
And we barely came up to speed on what was going on. That's when we got rid of the back half, like they asked us to. Because his brother was not in communication with him.
You want to give him a chance to speak?
We were not known until the
Yeah,
day.
you wanna just take a couple of minutes just to come to the microphone and speak, so it'll be on the record and we can hear. I'd like to hear from you a little bit on it.
Yeah, I can both do it.
Can I speak?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And can you repeat some of what you were just saying?
I'm
please?
sorry. We were not, my husband and his brother are the owners. What the thing is, my brother-in-law used to live there. He moved to Austin, beknownst to us. So they were not in communication for a minute. His brother called him the day that he came to court, the last court y'all had.
The hearing.
And he, as an owner, was not notified. We were not notified. Only Denicio was notified. And Denicio did not tell us until the day of the court, decided to call him and let him know. So that wasn't even fair to him. He didn't have a chance to get his hands in it and start, doing something. And now that we know about it, yes, we're on it, and we would like to, we finally come together with him, and we given his name to the city so that any further action, he could be notified, because it wasn't fair that only one person was notified and not both. I mean, how were we to know what was going on? So,
So.
I have a question also.
Yes, sir.
I
Mr.
mean,
De La Garza.
if their letters aren't sent out certified, how do we know all the owners were properly
Right.
notified?
Right.
And
exactly.
And see, if y'all put in the Victoria newspaper, we don't get the Victoria newspaper. So how are we gonna know?
We don't.
so what proof do we have that the owners were properly notified?
But there's
Hold on
been
just
a
a minute.
month since that time.
The notices are sent certified, the orders are not sent certified. So the notice of the meeting that we're gonna have this action are sent certified, but
And
the
everything was
actual-
returned.
the actual, I'd have to verify on the case files, but the actual orders after the board has taken action is sent regular mail and published on property.
So the notice of the hearing is sent as certified. Return receipt, I'm guessing.
And did we get both returned receipts from both parties?
So, Councilman De La Garza, just real quick also for clarification's sake. So, Julie mentioned earlier that the process is for notifications to be sent to the address on record that is with VCAD. That is the only way that staff has access to determine where to send something to. And as was mentioned, it's that address listed on there as your brother's. Hence why the notifications were sent to the brother's address. There would be no way for staff to know the dynamics of that ownership relationship, to know that there are other addresses or people to send it to, right? And so procedurally speaking, that is why staff follows the process of sending it to what's in VCAD. I hope that makes sense.
Okay.
I've got a question. So that was a month ago. So a month ago, you became aware of it. So, what plans do you have now?
Go ahead. Well, now we have a contract. We had the guy here that went to the house to look at the house.
Use the mic.
To look at the house and tell us, what he could do for us, and what we told him what we needed, because we did see the notice on our outside of our house of what needed to be done. So, we do have plans to, on the exterior, first we have to do the foundation. That's just, it has to be done, because we can't do the roof without doing the foundation. So we have that, we know that already. The exterior, we need, there's a lot of boarding. There's a lot to do on the exterior alone. And at the end, have it painted it's an eyesore because it's so many different colors. And the interior needs work also as well. The outside, the fence, the front fence is fine. At the back, it has been, somebody knocked it down, or I guess to get into the property. So, we know that has to be fixed as well. But we do have someone that came with us today. He had to leave, unfortunately. He had a call. But, yeah, we do intend to bring it up to code, if y'all just give us some time. And it's gonna take time, because obviously it's a mess.
Well, you're saying it's going to take time. Do you have an idea of a timeline?
He was
of
thinking.
the cost, and are you capable of handling that cost? Are you going to have to finance it?
Right. The cost, we can finance. My husband can do that, not me. But The time would be about a year. Because, like I said, we have to start with the foundation. From the foundation, we got to go to the roof. We got to do the outside. And then after all that's done, do the work, concentrate on the inside and electrical and plumbing. So, yeah.
Is any part of this house salvageable, like the frame?
The front half is the front half is solid. You can go and hat out the walls. It just need a little face up, new sheetrock.
It has good bones.
It's got good bones. Basically, what it is, the front half has good bones. The parts that's the add-on. We know the add-ons need to come down, but it's got good bones. Once we get the bones fit in, we can redo the roof, and it's solid. It's solid.
And any idea of how long would it take for us to see that there was some forward motion?
So forward motion.
I mean, I'm
So how
thinking,
long would it take them to see that we're working on it?
Oh, I mean,
Shoot, like I said, we come to Houston.
we live in Houston, but we do come down every weekend to do the yard now that we are aware of what's going on. But we're waiting on y'all to let us know that we don't have to tear it down, and we're gonna get our guy to start doing what he has to do, and he's ready to do it. So y'all should see some activity as soon as y'all give us the green light,
thank you for answering.
Okay.
So I want to make sure I'm clear on one thing, because the notice thing is kind of sticking with me. So the order is sent to all of the owners, but the initial notice is only sent to who's listed on VCAD, or did I get that backwards?
That's the notice of the hearing, the city runs title, and we go through all of we have title run.
Okay.
And any interested party on that title is who we send notice of the hearing to. If it's not in that title report and it's not on VCAD, then we don't really realistically have another way of knowing who might have ownership. That's the only way to do that. But that is where that notification comes from.
Okay, so that's notice of the hearing, but the initial notice that there's an issue.
That's just
That's
VCAD.
VCAD.
That's just VCAD.
Because that's
VCAD.
just a
Okay.
substandard case. It's a code enforcement case. And so it's not until the Building Standards Commission process is initiated that we pay to run the title.
Okay, and do we have verification that this gentleman received notice of the hearing itself?
No, I mean, I do have that we sent out letter sent, letter refused, letter sent.
What address?
We have this 5312 Ponciana Drive. I don't have the addresses for the letter refused. I'd have to actually go pull the case files to find out. But yeah, I mean, we go off of the address that we can find. And that's usually VCAD. If it matches the title report owners, then we use what we can find.
So that was not the correct address, correct?
I don't even know who's
We live in Houston.
We live in Houston.
That address, it doesn't even belong to his brother.
Yeah, that belongs to
So we don't know who
So,
that is.
yeah, we sent 4 different certified letters. That's the only address that was actually entered into the last address was 7310 Corporate Drive, apartment. That was on 10/31. That was notice of this meeting.
That came to yesterday, 2 days ago.
And council, just remember, if VCAD isn't updated and the property owners and mailing addresses and so on and so forth are not updated, that we don't really have a way to track them down to find what their current, I mean, that's a situation where, if the taxes are being paid on the property, then we should have that information and it should be correct, which is part of the reason that we can't ever find, that we can't find people when they change things and don't update them.
So my opinion on this is we have a willing owner of a house that wants to try and save their house. We have a housing affordability crisis in the nation and have a issue with it in Victoria too. I'm willing to work with y'all. In my opinion, I think a year's too long. You can build a whole home in a year. From that standpoint, I'd like to see it done in 6 months' time. I don't know why it can't be accomplished in 6 months. unless you tell me it's just a funding issue and cash flow issue, I understand that as well. But I would like to find some way to make sure that they get to keep the house that I know probably means a lot to you, but also provides maybe someone else to rent here in Victoria, and have a place to live. So I'd like to some way, and Ms. Lacy, maybe there's a way to craft a motion around this item where we put a pause on it for a 6-month. But I would like, within a 30-day period, that we have a detailed plan, that the planning department can come back and report to council. I know, we gave some leeway, but it's not happening. And we know now to contact Mr. Garcia, make sure we get all his contact information. It seems like he's the one that is going to be the responsible party for this. But we just need to find some way to come up with that. And I don't know how y'all feel about that. That's my opinion on it.
That's kind of my feeling too. I'm trying to figure out procedurally. You're a little bit more gracious than on the 6 months, but.
May I jump in? You can table the item and then have a sort of a verbal agreement with them that we'll call this back up in 3 months or 6 months or whatever. You can pick a day today, and we know that's going to be on that agenda, and that's how much time they have. And if you haven't heard a report from code that they've come in and made the agreement and are making process and so on and so forth, and then call it back up then, if that's how y'all prefer to handle it.
What's the difference between tabling it and just granting their appeal?
They would start the process all over
They
again.
would start the process all over again. If you grant the appeal, then it's going to send it, then it's going to have to go through code, through buildings and standards to make its way back up to y'all. It won't it's going to, that whole notification process and all of that stuff is going to have to start all over again.
Everybody's got the notification.
It'll also give the property owner a chance to really understand what is all that's entailed, because, these wall studs that are, to the foundation, I mean, if they're rotted, all of that stuff has to be pulled out, replaced, put back, and then you haven't even touched the system, so you haven't touched the roof. So it's a very extensive amount of work to be done on this house because of the deteriorated wood rot that exists.
That's why I'm thinking I'd like to table this maybe until January, the end of January, till our first meeting in February. That gives the owner time to really get in there and evaluate, see if they want to do this or not, and come up with a plan.
I agree, and I'd like to make that motion.
I actually put down a 90-day,
Okay,
and
so
didn't know what the time frame was, and 6 months is fine. Go
Will
ahead, I'm sorry.
you give a more detailed motion then or something?
I'd like to table this until the first meeting in the second meeting in January, because the holidays are there. Let's do
Okay.
this. And at that time, we need to hear from developmental services if they really have a plan in place.
So, okay. Is there a second on that?
I second.
Okay, so with tabling it till January, what is your expectation in January? Is it a plan and progress, or is it just a plan?
A plan.
A plan.
Because it's the holidays.
And at that time, we could choose to table it again to get through the construction part? Is that what your thinking is?
Yeah.
That's my
Because I want to make sure, I don't know how well versed y'all are in construction. This is a major undertaking.
It is.
Financially as well as time. And I want you to have the time to really think about it, because it is a major undertaking. But I would absolutely love it if y'all are able to save the house and have that structure here and have that improved structure in Victoria.
And if you realize that it's a problem, let us know in January.
We will.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
That gives us enough time.
Okay?
And you want a written plan?
Yes,
Okay.
to planning services,
With
they'll
them.
give a plan and detail on how you're gonna get there, but really study it, make sure it fits y'all's needs. Okay?
And don't wait until that meeting. Work with the Developmental Services
Yeah.
Department.
Okay. Any other comments? No. Ms. Solis, Mr. Crocker?
I think that's.
All right, thank
that's
you.
fair.
All those in
That's
favor?
fair. Aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So tabled until second meeting in January.
Thank you for coming.
All right, item E4.
Item E4 is a resolution appointing or reappointing 3 members to the Victoria Public Library Advisory Board.
All right, no, yeah, whatever, whichever.
There were 3 of us who were assigned to come up with 6 people from the 18 that applied. And I'd like to thank all the 18 that applied. And just because you weren't one of the 6 picked, please apply for other jobs. And I appreciate all the people, and they were very good people. It was a hard decision. Our decision wasn't to pick up the people that need to be on the library board. Our decision was to come up with the best candidates with our opinion that reflected all of Victoria. And then the council decides on who. All 7 members decide who's on the library board. But I'd like to thank all those people that applied, and please keep applying. If you don't get it this time, or you apply for other commissions, thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Lofgren, Ms. Scott, and Mr. De La Garza for agreeing to serve on that committee, nominating committee, and whittling down the list for us. Make the voting a lot easier, and I know a lot of thought went into it from all of y'all, and I do appreciate it. And Mr. Garza has a quick just update on Library Advisory Board.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. As part of that subcommittee meeting, I did provide a brief update to the subcommittee, and halfway through it, we all realized, well, this is probably something the entire council should hear. And so I have just a few slides just to walk you through some of the things that have occurred with the Library Advisory Board over the course of the last year. Obviously, it goes without saying that this time last year, there was a significant change in the makeup of the Library Advisory Board, not only through appointments that you made, but also through appointments that the county made. And so that really kind of started, if I can call it, a sort of a new updated approach as how we interact with the Library Advisory Board, how we communicate the information that's provided with them. And so I'll share some examples with you here shortly. One of the very first things that we did, considering that it was a major overhaul of the Library Advisory Board, which we'll do again with new members that get appointed this go around, is to do a formal new Library Advisory Board member training. This really helped us provide or give us an opportunity to help educate them and provide them with the information that they might need to be the most successful. This information included an update on like the master plan, for example, that since then has been adopted, the bylaws, some key projects, the agreement with the city and the county as it relates to library services, really just to give, we literally gave them a binder with all this information. And so that's how that started. And again, we plan to do that with any new members that come out of this process as well. As you know, the Library Advisory Board meets on a quarterly basis. And so shortly after the appointment of those new members last October, there was a meeting in November of 2022. It also goes without saying that at the time there was a lot of conversation, not only with the Library Advisory Board, but with the public and with you as well, as it relates to some policies around our collection. And so those were obviously one of the first items on the list last fall and last winter. And so there was a review specifically of the juvenile collection development policy as well as the adult and young adult collection development policy. One of the things as part of the orientation process that we also did was also do tours of the library. And so we invited, actually some of you were invited and included in those tours as well. Again, just as a way to help educate the members on what is it that the library does on a day-to-day basis, get them to see the spaces firsthand and ask any questions that they might have to hopefully better understand the operation of the library. And again, we would do the same with any new members that come on board this go around. In December of 2022, the committee also took up another large item that had been discussed last year, which was an update to the bylaws. For context, the conversation around bylaws is something that, we've started over the last several years associated with various boards and commissions. You may recall an overhaul of the Parks Advisory Commission that we did. We also created the Tourism Advisory Board. And so it was always our intention, regardless of what conversations or changes of membership of Library Advisory Board, was to have a conversation about bylaws. And so it just coincided that there was an attempt to update the bylaws around the same time that there was a change in the makeup of the Library Advisory Board. And so in December, Chairman Vasquez at the time appointed Gabe Patek, Ashley Sisson, and Dr. Jill Fox and Sarah Seller to a subcommittee to meet together with staff to review the bylaws and make a recommendation to the Library Advisory Board. Ultimately, those bylaws would have to be approved by you, the same way that you've approved the bylaws for the Parks Commission, Tourism Advisory Board, et cetera. Also at that same meeting, there was an updated, or not updated, but there was an official vote to move to adopt the updated adult collection development policies as well as the juvenile and young adult. Those ultimately came to you as well in January, and I'll get to that slide. But one of the things that also happened during that time was, of course, us trying to do whatever we could to try and update the way that we approached providing information to the public around the materials in the library. And so one of the ideas was adding recommendation of age ranges to the end of the shelves in the library. That occurred in December. You may recall that we also at that time, or around that time, implemented a restricted library card option so that the parent that or guardian that did want to have more oversight over the materials that would be checked out by a juvenile would have that opportunity to have that restricted library card that would require that parent or guardian to be present when a juvenile checks out a book. And so these were just some creative ideas that staff worked with you and the Library Advisory Board at the time to try and make those improvements. I mentioned that in January you adopted the juvenile collection development policy and the adult collection development policy that occurred in January. There were, you may recall, some significant changes to that helped stipulate things like how much time a book that is challenged and the decision goes to the board, how long time has to be spent before that book can be re-challenged or recontested. And we also clarified the process in terms of council being the final approvers of any recommended removals that might come from the Library Advisory Board. I mentioned the bylaw subcommittee that was put together in December. There were 2 meetings that were held with the members that are listed in this slide on January 25th and February 1st. At the quarterly meeting in February, there was I guess I can call it presentation, but a recommendation, probably a better word, a recommendation for some updated language to the bylaws. Ultimately, there was several efforts to make some changes to the bylaws that were being recommended, and ultimately none really passed or gained any steam at that meeting. And so till this day, we still remain under the same bylaws that were last approved, I think 2019. At that same board meeting, there was an election of new officers, and so Dr. Jill Fox became our new chair, and Sarah Seller became our new vice chair. Under Dr. Fox's leadership, I do believe that we've improved the communication between the board and the board leadership and staff. Also keep in mind that we went through a library director transition around the same time period. And so that also, I think, provided us an opportunity to make some changes to how, again, we approach and communicate with the Library Advisory Board. And of course, Jessica has been a big contributor to that. But one of the consistent themes that we heard in terms of feedback from Dr. Fox and some of the members was just access to more information, transparency and accessibility of information. And so there's been some improvements over the course of this year of providing more information to the board, something as simple as creating a more robust agenda packet. So rather than simply posting an agenda for the board meeting that just lists things without any hyperlinks, as an example. So something as simple as providing those staff reports to the board ahead of time to give them time to review. Obviously, that ensures that they can contribute to a discussion and Q&A during the board meetings. That's helped. Now Jessica puts together a director's report that includes a lot of data around monthly circulation, ebook circulation, juvenile physical and digital circulation, number of physical and digital library materials, total monthly programs, program attendance, and foot traffic. So again, just more data and more accessibility and transparency of information that we've been able to provide to the board. And so consequently, that has led to the 2 meetings that have occurred since then to really be centered around simply department reports. And so there hasn't, over the course of the last 2 quarterly meetings, been no new discussion around bylaws or anything else has come up. It has strictly been around department reports from staff. You will hear from Jessica next month on an annual report for the library. We are actually going to begin the annual reports for departments earlier this year. And some departments follow a fiscal year calendar when they present the annual reports, the library being one of those. And so you actually get to hear from her directly and all the wonderful things that the library has been up to next month. I don't want to steal any of her thunder, so you'll hear from her then. And I stole this from April's presentation, which was simply just to remind you that, you know, there are two city positions that need to be appointed with terms ending in October 2026, and then there's a joint appointee, city-county, that term ends in October 2026 as well. Procedurally, the way this has worked specifically for the city-county appointee is that after you appoint that city-county individual, we go ahead and provide that information to the county for consideration. And they typically take that up, you know, in short order after a decision is made here tonight. And Councilmember Lofgren already spoke about the role of the committee and the 6 applicants that they narrowed it down to. And so I will leave it with this screen up that lists the 6 individuals. And again, that's Ashley Sisson, Gay Patek, Angela Lapis, Catherine Olson, Joe Buchanan, and Rosemary Townsend. Oops, sorry.
The ballots were placed on the dais before the meeting. They do include your name because you can't vote by secret ballot. So if you will circle the name of the 3 individuals that you wish to appoint to these positions, and then we'll talk about who gets the city-county position after those are decided. There's plenty of ballots there, so if we have some ties, we may need to vote again. But if you'll circle those, I'll be glad to come around and pick those up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just a moment to tabulate.
We really got to get that Jeopardy soundtrack playing. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, so the way the vote worked out, Ms. Sisson received the most votes with 7, and Ms. Patek received 4, and then we have 3 individuals that received 3 votes apiece. So Ms. Sisson and Ms. Patek will move to the next round, and then for the one remaining spot, if you'll vote between Ms. Olson, Ms. Buchanan, and Ms. Townsend, please.
Say those names again.
Ms. Olson, Ms. Buchanan, and Ms. Townsend, so the last 3 on the ballot.
3 on the roll.
Yes.
Are we just voting for one person? Just for one. Oh, okay. Have to go again.
While she counts those, yeah, we don't want to assume, and so since Gay Patek has made it through, we would probably need to just be clear from you on whether your intention is to keep her in the city-county joint appointee slot.
Okay, with 3 votes, Ms. Olson is the winner of the 3rd spot. So, and yes, as Mr. Garza
It has
mentioned,
3 votes?
she has 3 votes and 2 for the other 2. So she has 3 votes.
Do you want to redo it until you get 4, or are you okay
I
with
think we
the way
should
that it
redo
is?
it and get 4.
Why?
Because I think a majority of the people should have, like, it shouldn't be by a popular vote.
Who do you knock off then?
It's up to you. Whoever voted for the other two, they can.
Is
Is
there,
anybody
there,
gonna change
you
their
were,
vote?
you were, you
Who
were
were the
voting,
vo- who
yeah,
were the
you were
votes?
voting from 3, right?
Yes.
What did the lowest vote getter
It was
get?
3 and 2 and 2.
3, 2, and 2?
Yes,
Oh,
so
okay.
there's no person just to drop off.
No need to vote.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's your
We've
call.
always done it the top vote getter.
How was, who got 3, who got 2, who got 2?
Well,
Well,
Ms.
Ms.
Olson
Olson got
and
3,
then
the other 2 got
got
2.
2. Ms. Buchanan, Ms. Townsend got 2.
2, 3.
So that makes
The way
7.
we've always done it is the top vote getters
Okay, that's fine.
get it, and
That's fine.
Okay.
Nobody wants to
So,
change their vote.
okay, so if we're all in agreement, then the resolution would read that Ms. Sisson and Ms. Patek would get reappointed, and then Ms. Olson would be the third member, and then as Mr. Garza stated, we
Yes.
would need direction on who
city county
gets the
keep the
city
same
county
as Ms.
position.
Patek?
Yes.
Everybody,
They'll send some
consensus on that? Okay.
Agree.
So,
Can I just say so moved?
so moved.
I've made a motion.
Okay, so the motion is to have Ms. Sisson and Ms. Olson serve for the city positions and Ms. Patek to be the city county
County.
jointly appointed person. That will have to go to the county for their agreement as well. But we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Thank you, everyone, for putting your names forward. And again, thank you to the nominating committee. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item E5.
I would like to add to that the ballots will remain on file in my office if anybody would like to view them. So item E5 is a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Populous Incorporated for the development of a master plan for the Victoria Community Center and Fairgrounds in the amount of $92,289.
All right, so I'm excited for this conversation, this presentation. A little background, we recently completed the sports facility assessment study with sports facilities companies. And you may recall from their assessment and their initial assessment of the community center that they weren't making any recommendations for it to host any major sport because of some limitations to the facility. And so we realized as we were going through that process that we needed to look at bringing somebody that was more of a subject matter expert and exploring some alternative options for the Victoria Community Center. And so we are recommending hiring Populous. And Todd Galla, who is a principal with Populous, is here tonight. And he will run through a short presentation to introduce the company, give some examples of their work, talk through the scope of the work, and a little bit of the timeline and next steps. So, Todd?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here. I know everyone's probably pretty tired. This meeting's gone on a while, but I did want to make a comment that I attend a lot of city council meetings, and I can't remember one that has been so positive and kind. So it's probably a
Thank you.
reflection of your city, so congratulations on that. This works, right? Okay.
We can't say the same, that we don't remember one. I mean, we're not unusual tonight.
Well, it was great. Congratulations. I'm Todd Gralla from Populous. We're an international planning and design firm. We specialize in public assembly facilities. The company's based in Kansas City. I'm based in Norman, Oklahoma. I traveled down yesterday evening and spent the day in town today. I visited the facility, the community center, as well as some of your other parks and recreation facilities to kind of gather an understanding of what we have before us. I'm going to give a brief presentation on some of our experience in the area and particularly related to this project, and then a little bit about how we intend to approach it. As I mentioned, public assembly facilities are really our business, and we've done quite a bit here in South Texas. We're known for our very big projects like San Antonio Convention Center, Reliant Stadium, Kyle Field, and the soccer stadium in Houston. But we also do a lot of work on smaller facilities, particularly county fairgrounds and exposition centers. We were the architect of record for the fairgrounds in Robstown, which is a very nice facility. Also, more recently, we completed last year some projects at East Williamson County and Taylor, which is again a very nice facility. This is a most recent photo showing some of the trailer parking and RV parking that was added most recently there. It is a very nice facility with a covered arena as well as a other entertainment spaces with really significantly upgraded architecture there at that complex. And also completed about a year and a half ago the base at the Heart of Texas Fair in Waco. It's a great facility, and if any of the staff intends to make any tours of facilities that are similar to the community center but more modern, up to date, I would highly recommend this one. It does look like a very fancy facility. The reality is it's quite a simple building when you look at it from the air. But Heart of Texas Fair is a relatively large complex there in Waco, and this facility was built to complement their main indoor arena and other facilities they have, to add courts, indoor courts for sports tournaments and spaces for trade shows. It's about 60,000 square feet. It's divisible into rooms of multiple sizes to be able to accommodate multiple types of events and sizes of groups. And they have been very successful in attracting court sport tournaments, as well as trade shows and other parties and banquet type events. So it's been tremendously successful. It also has great outdoor spaces, gathering spaces for pre-post event, the smaller meeting rooms, as I mentioned. So I think it's a good model of perhaps where we might head with the community center here. Additionally, we do a lot of fairgrounds work, as Jesus advised. Some of our smaller fairgrounds, this one was recently completed about 2 years ago, but also similar in the nature of the facilities it has when you look at your community center plus the livestock facilities that are out to the backside. Or we were focusing on, providing outdoor festival grounds. And your site in particular is very nice for that because you do have a lot of land around it, combined with the sports fields. And another common theme that you'll find in a lot of these facilities are rodeo and livestock facilities with indoor climate-controlled arenas. Another one is Grady County, also quite similar. Where we did a major renovation and expansion project to an existing facility that was about 55 years old, adding again that kind of multi-use indoor arena space, meeting rooms, and other facilities there, as well as an outdoor rodeo arena. A little closer to home here is the Mallet Event Center up in Levelland. That facility has been around now for about 11 years, so we have some kind of good record of how that facility's been performing. Mallet Ranches donated that land originally. The county and city joined together to build the facilities. And it's a multi-use event facility. It has banquet and event party facilities, as well as a pretty significant arena to host rodeos and horse shows and other events. One of the things you'll find most common in a lot of our facilities that are similar to your community center is that the modern ones are very adaptable, very flexible. They use retractable seating so that rooms can do more than one thing, a building can do more than one thing, and I think that's very forward-looking, and I know just from hearing the meeting today here that you guys are very forward-thinking in your approach to projects and also governance, that anything you invest in, you want to be sure that it has viability long-term and can adapt to uses as the community changes. And I think that's very important. Some of the challenges we'll be dealing with and looking at the existing facilities will be the column spacing of your building, particularly the arena, the enclosed arena on the backside, and the height of spaces. We're typically looking at a minimum of 90, which your arena is currently with the seating in place, but ideally 120 feet of clear span space, which your arena on the backside is about 116, so just shy of that. But the real critical thing is height. So when we try to look at how we're going to program a building, for example, basketball or indoor sports, height is a really significant issue. And 30 to 40 feet is what is typically recommended for trying to host indoor sports tournaments, with 24 being very minimum, and our building at the edges currently is probably around 20 feet. But we'll be looking at that much more closely moving forward. But just keep in mind that there are probably some limitations to what the building can do. And this kind of shows you what that 120 and 90 feet means. Take the same building square footage, reduce a clear span of a building from 120 to 90. It clearly shows you the limitations of what you can support within that building. Basketball is cut in half, but you're building the same square footage. So these are things we'll keep in mind as we move forward and look at our situation here and make recommendations. This is a project I think is dear to Jesus's heart, maybe not. We worked on this back in 2017 together in Kingsville. And looking back on it, it was quite a good project, design and master plan. This at the time was the existing site conditions. There was an old arena there. It was actually, believe it or not, the first fully enclosed air-conditioned rodeo arena in the state of Texas when it was built. It's a big building. It has a lot of history. It's the location where George Strait always started and ended his tours with the finale here. But as you can see, we were dealing with a pretty tired building, one that needed a lot of TLC to keep it going for another generation. So we went through a facility assessment and we began kind of dissecting the building, kind of understanding, with the bones we had, what could we do with it? What could the building be? What do we need to add on in terms of locker rooms and meeting spaces, bathrooms to better service the public needs? And these are some of the resulting diagrams of how that building could be set up if it were to be renovated the way we intended. Being able to do rodeo, in two sizes of arenas with flexible seating, basketball tournaments, very large in-stage shows, and then by adding some other amenities such as a warm-up arena onto the end of the arena, covered arena, which has been added to the site since the master plan was done, as well as a livestock and horse barn, it would really extend the capabilities of that facility. So this was a resulting master plan, and what's important here also to recognize is that we're not going to be just looking at the buildings, the vertical structures. We're also going to be looking at your whole site. How do you access the site from the public streets? Our ball fields, like the adult ball fields, for example, are they in really the best location? Should they be in a different location? Do we need to invest money in them? Does it make sense to invest money in that location? How do we deal with trailer parking and public parking and things like that? And this site, and the master plan we did at JK Northway really clearly shows how we addressed all of those site needs. And then a couple renderings of what that intended master plan was supposed to look like when it was fully built out. So we'll be going through these same processes for the community center here in Victoria with renderings, plans, the same resulting documentation. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about related to your project and how we're going to approach it. So there's really three answers I think that are critical in the outcome of what we're doing. And that is a good master plan. One thing is, what do we want to be? What do we want the community center to be? And that's going to take some stakeholder input. So we would like to come back to Victoria and have a pretty well-organized session with the public in form of public meeting, as well as key stakeholders from the community to talk about the vision for the community center long-term. The second thing is, what does it look like? So once we compile that, we kind of reach a consensus on what the community center wants to be. What does that physically look like from a master plan and building standpoint? And then how do we get there? And this is a combination of us working with Jesus's team as well as council. But what does the implementation plan look like? How much does it cost? How much time does it take? Is it phased? What exactly is our approach to physically manifesting this project? So what does it want to be? So again, the public engagement is very important. To have a project steering committee to help us is very important. And those should be key stakeholders as well as some public. We want to see if there's any unique opportunities here in Victoria that we're not really readily aware of. We try to look for that. We want to look at the history of the place. Why was it built? Is it serving its intended function well? Is it not? Are there new needs for the community center? Look at the existing facilities to understand what we have to work with. And what's on the right is from another project at the Nebraska State Fair, but it gives you an example of kind of the pool of local resources that we pull from to be part of our steering committee. You know, it's CVB, it's council members, it's a school board, it's livestock association. Those members and their engagement are very important. And then what does it look like? So we'll go through a programming exercise to understand the spaces required, the type of facilities and exterior spaces required to meet the objectives we'd like to meet. And then we'll go through the physical planning and conceptual design process to develop, you know, the physical plans, renderings, and site plans. And then an implementation plan is really about determining how much is the capital cost going to be, which is hard and soft costs plus contingencies. We want to look at phasing the project probably. What do those phases look like? How many years does it take? And then we want to really work that plan where you need to identify key partners and champions in the community, establish a plan for funding it, and then set the project schedule and begin moving forward. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Sorry to blow through that so quickly, but you guys probably are ready to
I have a
deal with
question.
other business.
When he's going to come up with the plan, is it going to already incorporate adult softball fields?
Yes, great question. And so the scope of Populous's work, I guess the easiest way to explain it is that they're actually going to look at everything that's on the community center side of the ditch. Because it makes sense at the same time that they're looking at possible expansion or new facilities for the community center to also take into account placement of the fields. And so they are going to be looking at that based off of the initial recommendation from sports facilities companies in terms of number of fields. We'll simply take a look at figuring that out. Because realistically speaking, we can move a field, but we can't move the community center, right?
Right.
So we need to prioritize ensuring, okay, is there the space there that the community center needs for whatever expansion or growth plans it has over time? And if the adult complex can fit somewhere in there, great. If not, then we need to explore alternative options, right? But again, we can move a ball field, but we can't move the community center, right? And so the community center process is really going to drive that. But the site element is very critical because one of the things that we learned, for example, going through Kingsville that we really hadn't thought about was the amount of space that it takes to have the number of RV hookups that you need in order to actually be competitive for these types of events, as well as the space for things like horse stalls and other things that are revenue generating. So for example, the Robstown facility, which we also learned this through the process down there, is that it was actually less expensive to rent the Robstown facility, the arena, than it was the JK Northway, because the Robstown facility made its money through the RV hookup cost and the cost of renting out the horse stalls. And so those are revenue generating amenities that we just don't have that could play a role in the pro forma after the fact. But anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, one more question. Is the J.C. Hall going to be staying where it's at, or who owns the J.C. Hall?
The livestock?
No, the building that's on the side of the community center, let's see, to the left-hand side. Or actually, the right-hand side when you're driving into the
Oh,
community
yeah, I'm
center?
sorry.
That building right there?
We yes.
Is
Answer
that
yes.
ours, or is it going to stay there?
No, it's ours.
The
And
JC
in terms
Hall,
of whether
is
it's going to
owned by the-
stay there, yeah, we're not going to recommend, demolishing anything unless there's some major critical, thing that needs to be in its place.
Oh, okay.
We'll be looking at, additions to the existing facility, maybe new facilities to complement the existing facilities. But we certainly aren't going into this, thinking that, we're going to just knock stuff down and start from scratch.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
That's exciting. Looks interesting.
Look forward to seeing the results.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
I'll second.
I got a motion and a second to approve item E5. Any further questions, comments, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E6.
Item E6 is a resolution adopting the Victoria Active Transportation Master Plan.
Evening again. So if you'll remember, we had Ellen Saul with Alliance Transportation Group come to the last quarterly workshop and presented sort of a rough draft of our plan. Our plan was about, I'd say 95% done at that point. So I don't think there's going to be anything shocking tonight that I present. But we did get the appendices delivered between now and then, which is, to me, the most exciting part of the plan, although I'm probably building it up too much. It's probably going to be anticlimactic to you because it's really just spreadsheets, and I don't have a lot of that information in the PowerPoint because spreadsheets are not interesting, even though they are very helpful. So why do we create an active transportation plan? For these reasons. Our goals were to improve safety between different modes of transportation, connectivity, health, equity, economic growth, resiliency, and then most importantly, so that we are very prepared whenever transportation project funding opportunities arise. We know when those grants come through, we have a list because of those great appendices that I was telling you about that tells us exactly what we want to go for. So they started this plan by first looking at our latent demand. So this is a very almost boring, I'd say, like analysis on based off of census data. So they look at these factors, how much in each hexagon is there of populated density, all of these things that you see on the screen, and then they take that data and they create a score. A 0 to 9 score because there's 9 different factors. And then you get a total maximum of 9 points. So you can see in the heart of our community, there is expected to be a lot of latent demand based off of all of these factors that tell us that people need to bike or walk in our community. And then, of course, safety is always a transportation planning goal. Crashes involving people walking and biking are more likely to result in severe injury or fatality. So anytime we can plan safely for alternative modes of transportation beyond the vehicle, bikers and walkers is incredibly important. And you can see that we definitely had some hot spots, specifically along Houston Highway, that really you wanted to look at and see what we could, what recommendations could come out to help with our safety goals.
Julie, that the hotspots on Houston Highway, that was created before the median project, wasn't it?
Yes, so the data, we don't have, the data went through 2022. So as the longer the medians are in place, we expect those hotspots to definitely not have so much yellow and hopefully eventually eliminate. And there's some recommendations in the plan as far as upgrading signals, pedestrians. We did a walk audit when we were in the plan and crossing Houston Highway and all of those lanes of traffic without pedestrian signals telling you in the cars when to go can be a little harrowing. And so as we've been upgrading a lot of our intersections, the intersection we actually crossed had the upgrades already there. They just weren't working yet. TxDOT hadn't turned them on yet. And so as we are able to upgrade those intersections, all of that's going to play an important factor in making that a more safe corridor.
But part of that also is ticketing jaywalking when you see it.
Yes.
Yes, I mean,
Because you can't, we put in $1 million for a crosswalk that doesn't get used.
look both ways,
No,
definitely.
no, it's not look both ways. It's illegal to cross where people are crossing and getting in an accident.
Yes.
And so I still think we need to focus whenever an officer sees it, don't give a warning for jaywalking, just write the ticket.
Yeah, safety takes everyone. So this is a good illustration of how dangerous, pedestrian and auto accidents can be when that speed is increased. And so a big analysis on why the maps ended up looking the way the maps ended up looking, whether it be a recommendation of a shared path or a sidewalk or whatever, had a lot to do with the type of facility that was going on to, whether it was a arterial or collector and the speeds of those roadways. As far as the analysis on, how comfortable or the level of stress we currently feel on our existing roadways, primarily due to speed, is why there's a higher level of stress. If they reduced the speed, even on our neighborhood streets, local neighborhood streets to 25, you would see a little bit more green and a lot less yellow. And so again, this all factors into why the map was recommended. So there was a lot of engagement with this master plan. We had a steering committee. We did a lot of online engagement and stakeholder meetings, and I'd like to take a moment to thank our steering committee right now. Brian Olguin, who's a planning commissioner, served on it. Jan Scott, Jeff Finklarek with our TxDOT Youker district, Kathleen Keating, who is an interested citizen, and then Lee Keeling, our Parks and Recreation Commission chair, also served on the steering committee, and they gave a lot of valuable information. So we had several stakeholder meetings and steering committee meetings. We did a walk audit, and we actually ran into some walkers when we were doing our walk audit, and were able to briefly do an interview with them and get their opinions on how it felt. And this was actually the intersection I was talking about, where the pedestrian elements were up, but they weren't quite turned on yet. It was in the middle of the construction project. And how we saw firsthand how helpful it would have been to have those pedestrian signals working and live. So these are we invited a huge amount of stakeholders, but as far as participants that actually came to our meetings, we had representatives from VISD, VCAM, United Way, the Public Health Department, Police Department, the transit, and then transit rider interviews also. So Maggie Bergeron, our MPO coordinator, actually rode on transit buses and performed interviews with transit riders on how they used, or how they, once they got off the bus, what mode of transportation, what kind of active transportation, did they have a bike with them? Did they put on the bus? Were they walking? How was their experience getting to the bus and off of the bus? And so that was some interesting feedback that we were able to put in the plan too. And then I have never participated in a plan that received so much responses from online engagement. We received 528 responses from Victorians, a lot of it garnered through Facebook. Our Facebook was used to direct people to the actual survey online. So this was 528 responses on the actual survey. It had an interactive map where people could give us data on what their routes were, how they, what they felt like biking in Victoria, or walking in Victoria was like, and this is kind of a result overview of the results. So the number one reason people are actually walking and biking here is for health. And then one of the biggest barriers to walking or biking is gaps in sidewalks, or there's not sidewalks where they want to go, or the condition of the sidewalks. And then for biking, safety concerns is a big barrier to why people do not choose to bike. So this is the recommendation, and it's a little, in a presentation format, it does feel a little lackluster, I'll admit that, but all of these lines, are showing what their recommendations are, whether it be a bicycle boulevard or bike lane, a buffered bike lane, and the details of what those are in the plan. And then I just provided just a snippet of that appendice. It tells us some recommended projects, and I really love plans that give you a list of things to do, because it's so satisfying when you can then go check, 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 and after 10 or 15 years, you've got a lot of great implementation. But those appendices list out the name of the project, the limits of the project, the facility type, what, if it's a high priority, low priority, the length, and then the actual cost in today's dollars of how much they expect or estimate that project to cost. And so, like I said earlier on the first slide, when we do have opportunities for grants and other alternative funding sources to come through, we know exactly what we'll be able to ask for. We have these nice appendices that hopefully we can be granted those grants and be able to check off those lists. So this is the bicycle, and then there's a similar recommendation for sidewalk and intersection improvements. Again, with the corresponding table of different projects and the estimated cost. And you can see some of those sidewalk gaps are very small. There's a sidewalk gap. It's labeled West Mockingbird from Vine to US 87 with an estimated cost of $1,000. And then, of course, you get into signals, which are a little bit more. So it's a very robust plan, although I'm not sure that this presentation really does it justice because there's no way to make spreadsheets exciting. As I said, it also lists out those facility profiles. So when you're looking at that map and that appendix and it says, a shared bike path or high visibility crosswalk, when you dive into the plan, it has a description of what all of that means. And then it also lists out funding strategies, different grants that are well-known and regular and called for every year, such as the state sources, as well as partnering with the MPO for federal sources, and then, of course, local funding recommendations or options as well. So with that, I'd ask for you to adopt our first ever active transportation master plan. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, of course.
I have one question. I'm sorry, it goes back to the beginning of the presentation. I was thinking through it. When you had the map on there that showed demand, I think is the different colors.
Latent demand?
So how is that demand calculated? How is that arrived at? Is that based strictly on population, or is that based on feedback and people within that area?
It's strictly based off of census data and actual data that's input into the GIS of those factors.
Yeah, that's the one I was. So
Yes.
so that's basically population.
A lot of them are populate, yeah. So,
And I guess
I
what
mean,
I'm asking
transit
is,
stops is not really, that's a layer that we've pulled in from where transit
okay, I
stops
guess
are,
what
but-
I'm asking is that doesn't correspond to the online responses.
No,
that
completely
showed-
separate. This is all data driven. There's
Okay.
no, it's facts from census or, where we have stops or infrastructure that's been recorded from our GIS maps. Like I said, transit stops or whatever. And then census data based off of population density, employment density, all of those census numbers.
Okay, so these are just density driven. Okay, all right, that's what I need.
The factors pulled from census that are tied to, there's a correlation with transportation studies on these factors and the census data.
Okay, thanks.
I wanted to commend and thank you and Ms. Bergeron also, as well as our consultant for well-led meetings, well-organized. It was really a pleasure to serve on the committee, and certainly, as I've said before, it's eye-opening to look at, facing some of our streets that we're very proud of and that traffic can move quite rapidly on. And when you're doing it from a walking standpoint, it's a whole different concept. Walking or biking, really.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
It was
But I
a
would
fun
like to
plan, I
move
will
that
say
we-
that.
I would like to move that we adopt this item.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on it? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we have E7.
Item E7 is a resolution casting votes for the appointment of a member or members to the Victoria County Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. The presentation that I attached to this is basically the same presentation I gave when we nominated Ms. Scott. Mayor and I spoke about it before the meeting and agreed that y'all probably didn't want to hear it all over again. But we do have, the city of Victoria has 872 votes to disperse. And if you reviewed the resolution, I believe Mayor Bauknight requested that the resolution be written by our legal staff to include 866 votes going to Councilmember Jan Scott and 1 vote going to each of the other applicants, which include Judy Clegg, Rick Jones, Dr. John McNeil, Brian Morris, Jason Ort, and Jody Sandoval. I believe, Mayor, did you want to explain your reasoning behind that? Or?
Yes, so by casting at least 1 vote for every member that's on the ballot, besides the one that we really want on the ballot and continue serving, it will give the city the ability to force a recall election at any point, if they so choose. I don't anticipate that being a case in the future, but we had run across that in the past, and we had no legal authority to do it. So this is just kind of playing the game, but it's in there. As long as you voted for, cast a vote for one of the members, you have the ability to start the process and do a recall election. So it just preserves some accountability for the city.
I move we adopt E7.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, city manager's
Thank you all.
report.
I will represent you to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're hoping you're reelected president too.
Gilbert, will introduce this topic, which is an update on the water, wastewater, and stormwater proposed rate study.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. Good evening, council, mayor. One of the, I guess the bad thing about being the last one on the agenda, you get staff telling you, don't take that long.
15 minutes.
Actually, I'm brought down to 10, I think.
Awesome.
David, you got 5. Anyway,
First clock.
good evening. Tonight, we got 2 short presentations. I'm going to address the proposed water, wastewater, stormwater rate study. And the second one is going to be the history of that. And the second one, Dave and Melvin is going to let you know what's involved with the stormwater drainage study, to give you a highlight on it. We're not planning to pass any contract tonight, but I want to make sure council is still comfortable and moving forward. So this is the purpose of this meeting. And moving on, I'm going to give you a background. I want to let you know where we've been with the utility rates. As you well know, we just had the utility water, wastewater. What we plan or proposing to do and moving forward in the future. With that said, recapping it, in late 2017, we completed a water and wastewater utility project. It was a 5-year study from fiscal year 18 through 22. It was decided at that time, within that study timeframe, that 2018 didn't see any rate changes. At that time, remember, we had 7-tier structure and along with the base rate. Now, moving into 2019, based on the report, we agreed on moving from a 7-tier, which I explained in a minute, to a 4-tier structure, which, let me bring it up real quick. As you recall, in 2018, there are the 7 tiers for the water and the wastewater. We moved to I'll call it 4 tiers for 19, 20, 21, 22 per the study. On the water side, it's working great. We kind of comprised the 7 to 4. Revenues are looking okay. We need to do some tweaking down the road, but it's okay. On the wastewater side, as you can note in fiscal year 2022, the study proposed a rate increase. Of course, we didn't recommend that. There were 2 factors to there. We still wanted to do, at that time, a stormwater drainage master plan update. Also, do a stormwater rate study at the same time. And keep in mind, I know you're very aware of this, that currently the utility fund, water, wastewater, is generating some excess cash flow. So it'd be, coming up here and asking for extra cash flow, that's not gonna work. So with the idea is that let's wait, get all the puzzles together, and then come back and see where everything lays out. Now, in 2021, we did the Storm Master Plan update. It was performed by Civil Tech and Urban Engineering. It was completed in April 2021. There was a lot of recommendations that Melvin and his folks came up with in the recommendation. A lot of it is a lot of maintenance. There was a lot of projects. And if you want to look at it real quick, I won't go through a detail of it. You know, here's 5 projects. You got the Garden Apartment Development Improvement, the Anthony Road Outfall, Longtree Road Outfall Improvements, and Clegg Ditch. Some of those, we're kind of addressing them in the coming CIP. But still, there's quite a bit amount of cost that was developed during that study. Now, that's about $84 million at the time of that study. That's on top of the previous stormwater study that was done prior to that, which is about another $293,000. So you're looking over $300,000 of really drainage improvements that, or maintenance that need to be done. And I'll get more in details with that in a minute. Now, in 2023, we did a water, wastewater, stormwater RFQ. We had 3 qualified firms. We wanted to do a pool, and from that pool, we selected New Gen Solution. Why did we select them? Well, one is that, as you well know, New Gen did our utility rate study, are very well known on our operational utility side and how it's structured and everything else. In addition to that, they have partnered up with Melvin, who was very involved with our stormwater update improvement plan, master plan. So those 2 combinations alone made us decide, let's pick them. So what are we going to do in moving forward? Council, we'd like to explore, establish maybe a storm drainage enterprise fund where we have a budget and also maybe a rate structure that can be along with that. But keep in mind, over the past 10, 15 years, the only drainage maintenance budget we have is in the general fund, which is about $60,000, true maintenance, besides mowing, put that aside. So out of sight, out of mind, you only hear the phone calls. Well, guess what? When it starts raining and it starts flooding, okay, what are we gonna do? Well, there's $300 million that we haven't addressed yet. So we got to start thinking forwardly, like the gentleman said before. So our recommendation is that we want to proceed forward with your permission, develop and design some type of budget with a rate structure. At the same time, come back after that's done. Let's review and update the utility side, water and wastewater. If that's okay with you, we plan to come back next council meeting, November 24th, and award that contract to give you some time to think about it. That's really in a nutshell what I have to say. If not, I have Dave and Melvin to have a little quick presentation to give you a high-level presentation on the stormwater rate study and design, if that's okay with y'all. Thank you.
Okay. How to get out of yours and into mine?
I read him out.
You what?
I'm out.
Are you?
He needs to put you out.
Oh, okay.
Deduct that.
Yeah. Okay, well, good evening. For the record, my name's Dave Yankee. I serve as the president for New Gen Strategy Solutions. So what I'm gonna do, I know it's late this evening or getting later, I'm gonna hit the highlights in my presentation. If you have questions as we go along, feel free to interrupt me at any point. Whoops. How do you advance?
What do you need?
Do you have a clicker? Oh, this thing? Here we go. Yeah, you better.
Not the bottom.
There you go. This guy? Oh, okay. So what I'd like to do is very briefly, some firm introductions. Secondly, key stormwater issues. These are some things I just want to bring to your attention. A lot of times people don't think about stormwater until things are flooding. And so I want to make you aware of some issues. And then if we are selected to do this, the approach we would take for undertaking this study. So again, first of all, very briefly with firm introductions, New Gen Strategy Solutions. We're a 55-person financial consulting firm. All we focus on are water, wastewater, stormwater, solid waste issues, and electric, doing cost service studies, feasibility. And then we'll partner with engineering firms when there are engineering-related components. With regard to my background, I appreciate it. I've had the opportunity to work with the city over 15 years now. As was mentioned, I worked on the last water wastewater cost service study, worked with you on solid waste issues, and I've been conducting these types of studies for 30 years. And then I'm going to let Melvin introduce himself.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's good to be with you again. My name is Melvin Spinks. I was here a couple years ago in 2021 presenting to you the City of Victoria Stormwater Master Plan update. Clearly, we're really excited to talk a little bit about that with you this evening. From an introduction standpoint, clearly this is home to me. So Victoria is where I was raised, and Victoria's the best time. So I am a national expert in water resources engineering, 36 years in the business doing this. And we look forward to giving you more information about the rate study.
So the next thing I'd like to do is just talk about some of the key stormwater issues you should be aware of. These are things that we would want to address in detail with you if we were working with you on this project. So first of all, and some of the, there we go. Oh, that's tricky. So one of the primary reasons why it's important for a city to look at stormwater, there are a number of critical, essential services you provide that your citizens count on, and quite frankly, they take for granted. And so we've just highlighted some of them here, the water and wastewater services, solid waste, and stormwater. Again, these are services, they're kind of there's kind of good news, bad news with them. The City of Victoria does a great job providing these services. Citizens take them for granted until something goes wrong. You provide very good water, wastewater services, solid waste. You heard about that with the landfill. And then stormwater, no one thinks about it until a tropical storm hits, but it's a critical service to provide. So a couple things I want to talk about here, a couple graphs just to kind of bring home the relationship between water and stormwater. And I'm going to take the first graph, and we'll start with the first circle with drought at the top. We'll go clockwise. And what happens typically is we're in a drought. We've gotten some rain recently, but a lot of the parts of the state still have some type of drought criteria on them. So when there's a drought, there's panic. People go, what are we going to do for water supply? For you folks, it's the Guadalupe River, your Gulf Coast aquifer. Is there enough? And so you worry about water supply, and you start planning, okay, well, what other alternatives are there? And then it rains, and that's good. And maybe it floods. And so then there's a panic with that because now you got flooding, all right? So with that, you also worry about water quality. Positive, aquifers recharge, and so that's good. But it does typically lead to planning then about how do we minimize the flooding and damage associated with it going forward. And that's really what we're talking about with regard to this portion of the study or this study. And then just what's critical, you talked earlier, heard Darryl talk about solid waste planning and the landfill. And because I'm involved in solid waste, I know how huge that is to get 100 years of landfill life. That makes your city attractive. Having a city and stormwater system that people that move here with new industry, and as you have industry come in, you create more impervious cover. It's important that you don't have flooding as a result of the growth, and you need to address it early versus later. I was involved with a project in Fort Worth years ago, and of course, Fort Worth's grown like crazy. They had some open ditches, and it went back to the 40s, 50s, where there were open, creeks, and they put in a stormwater pipe and then covered over, and then homes were built over on some of them. Okay. Sounds great in theory. Actually, it doesn't sound great in theory, but it gets worse in the future as you go forward. As development grows to the north, now you have more impervious cover up there. That means that water's not going into creeks or going away. It's just running down and not being absorbed. And all of a sudden, these areas had huge stormwater issues where they had to look at it, buyouts and things like that. If you plan now, that avoid some of those issues. So very quickly, water as a resource, again, starting with number one, and I'll do this really fast, but we all know having a good water utility, that's critical for your city, okay? That's gonna help your city thrive because you have water supplies and good wastewater system. With regard to, I gotta put my glasses on, sorry. With that, if you have a thriving city, you're gonna have businesses and industry that wanna come here. Complements with the landfill. To the extent agriculture is there, that benefits. And again, from a social, economic standpoint, it helps for that. And then the healthy waterways, again, having healthy waterways, sufficient water supplies, that's critical for you. And if you have flood resilience, you're not flooding regularly, again, it completes the loop and you're back at circle or item one with a resilient city and water utility. So let's just get to the purpose of a drainage utility fee. What does this entail? So the primary purpose for a drainage utility fee is to recover the costs for the maintenance activities and drainage infrastructure needs, okay? So it's critical to establish a funding mechanism for the stormwater utility. And then those costs would be developed, and that would be part of the scope here. What are those costs that are required from a budgeting standpoint? So that's personnel, that's equipment, that's materials. It may be some of the future capital projects that have been discussed, some of the things that Melvin worked on in the prior study. And then a critical component also is looking at customer characteristics. One of the key things that we look at, and it's one of the reasons Melvin and his team's involved with this, is looking at the GIS data, and you're looking at parcels of land, what's impervious, pervious, and again, impervious just means like concrete, water hits, it runs off, it's not getting absorbed, you gotta capture it somewhere and make sure it doesn't flood. So that's a key portion, and then establishing equitable funding mechanisms to recover those costs. Just real quick, and I apologize, I forgot to mention, I think you all were provided a copy of my PowerPoint and also an article that Matthew Garrett, he's an owner in our firm, he really leads our stormwater practice, and there's quite a bit of information and comparison in there for other cities, and it's interesting. In there, you'll see on one of the back slides, a bunch of green lines, the residential monthly fees that were surveyed go from $1 to over $22. And again, we're talking $22 per month per household. And there's an average of $5.62 per month per household. Now, some of you, I won't make you look for that one on that survey. You might say, who in the world would have a $22 stormwater fee? And no, it's not Houston, okay? It's Lubbock. Now, you're gonna go, why in the world would Lubbock do that? Well, Lubbock does it because it doesn't rain that much, but if you've ever been there, it's pretty flat. So when it does rain, and it does rain, the water's got nowhere to go, and there's a lot of flooding. I know that happened earlier this year, and it caused huge problems. They couldn't collect solid waste for weeks because the alleys were all flooded. So $22. There are also certain discretionary exemptions you can have, but then I just gave some other examples of fees there. Again, real quick then on types of fees, residential, a lot of times there can be a flat fee like I just gave you an example. Some cities will do, okay, small lot, medium-sized lot, and a larger lot. There can be other types of charges. a lot of the commercial rates are done on an impervious area basis. So the more, hard surface you have, asphalt, concrete, you typically would pay more because you're creating more runoff. And I'll just mention, this is being recognized as an issue. I showed you the rates, and you can look at those in the article in more detail. Texas Water Development Board has recognized this historically. They've focused on water and wastewater funding issues. They are now starting to look at stormwater because they realize some cities call it one water because it's all interrelated. And these are some of the costs that are included. I'm just going to skip through it. It's basically your operating and maintenance costs I talked about, capital cost if you were taking land and putting drainage easement, drainage, stormwater facilities in there. It covers all those types of costs. What level of service do you want to maintain? Again, if we're retained to conduct this study, it was budgeted that December 8th we would do a workshop with City Council. One of the things we would ask is what level of service do you want to maintain? And hopefully I won't make Melvin too nervous because he's a stormwater guy and I'm a finance guy, but I'm going to define level of service, and so it'll be okay. But I'll give you an example. We had a client, it was the city of Tucson, so you could say, okay, a level of service, and this is a simple example, but hey, we get one inch of rain. We want it to be able to all go off the street, no flooding. 3 inches of rain in an hour, we don't want it flooding the street. 4 inches, we're going to flood. We can't do everything. Tucson, who's been a long time solid waste client of mine, they had a standard of, look, when it rains, it's just going to be there till it goes away. That's our level of service. In other words, we're not going to do anything. That worked for a certain amount of time, and then they had some major flooding issues, which finally had them, and I worked with their solid waste utility. They said, okay, solid waste utilities going into the general enterprise fund, you're going to create user fees because we got to start building stormwater infrastructure projects. So they took general fund money, to do that. So just, that's an example. Key thing is to prioritize what are your projects. And our thought here is to develop a 3-year plan, give you an idea of where you're going, and then going forward, as Gil mentioned, then it would sync up going forward with a 5-year plan where every 5 years you look at your water, wastewater, stormwater rates. I'm going to have Melvin come up, and he's going to briefly talk about some of the key projects that were looked at.
So Mr. Reyna presented a summary of the Stormwater Master Plan update study we did in 2021, where we identified 6 priorities. And I think he talked about an $80 million cost for those priorities. What I'd like to talk about with you is in 2 of those priorities, which was number 2 and number 3 on the screen there today, the drainage maintenance program was a recommendation that said you have 166 miles of storm sewer out there that needs to probably be televised and clean. And that cost was in the order of about $17 million. These stormwater utility fees serve that type of purpose to fund those types of strategies, where you can do annual maintenance of a program that may be a 5-year, 10-year program. Clearly, you're not going to clean 166 miles in a year, but it's over a period of time, maybe 10 years. And I do want to acknowledge Ken Gill, because Ken, again, worked with us very closely on the Stormwater Master Plan. Also part of the storm sewer cleaning that needs to be done. We talked about ditch cleaning. A lot of ditches around the city, and I think we identified at the time 23 miles of roadside ditches that could be cleaned as well, and the tune of that cost was about $11 million. The priority number 3 was we did an investigation of the channels within the city of Victoria. We saw where there are some concrete failures, some slope failures, and we identified about $3 million worth of costs there. So I think the point here is that clearly there's a big need in terms of the overall capital improvement program. And I think Mr. Reyna talked about that $293 million. That's a very long, big term program of capital improvements. but a stormwater utility is very well set to look at the drainage maintenance portion of capital that's needed. So wanted to give you those highlights. I think the next slide is just the other three priorities, but I'll turn it back over to Dave.
And I'm almost done here. Okay, so project approach, so there are only a couple slides. So very briefly, all I'm going to do is focus on the 5 items that are in bold, okay? Again, if this moves forward on December 8th, we would have a very detailed workshop with you. Matthew Garrett from our firm would be here that heads up our stormwater projects, and he would be delving through really some of the key things, the level of service standards, different types of fees, things like that. But it starts off with the data request, then that kickoff meeting where input from you is critical to some of the approaches, how we move forward. Critical items in the conduct of the study then is working with your utility billing system. Again, we have some advantages here, having worked 5 years ago with the water and wastewater cost service study and the billing system. And then also the parcel data that Melvin and his team has available from the prior study. There has to be more granularity with it, but there's some good data to start with. And then 1.5 is the key one. That's where we build out the 3-year forecast. What are we looking at? And Melvin made a good point. We're not talking about, let's go build all this stuff. We're saying, let's just put a budget together to clean and maintain, first of all. Let's talk about cleaning and maintaining the system you have so that when it does rain, you don't have dams created by junked vehicles. I know that's not an issue for you, but we've had that with our clients where there's junked vehicles that go in a ravine because that's how you get rid of them in some parts. And all of a sudden trees catch on it and now you got a dam. So that's the key things we'll focus on, and then the water and wastewater cost service study. And that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll only add, if it brings any value to it, during my time in Kingsville, I happened to be there. They had decided to implement one for the first time a couple years before I arrived in Kingsville, and so I happened to be there right in the meat of the implementation aspect of it. So for whatever it's worth, got some experience in implementing this type of fee for the first time, and some lessons learned, from that experience in Kingsville that obviously we'll talk through the consultant and with you as we go through the process.
2 last points. This project, and if you're not wondering about it, it'd probably be a good comment, is that it's going to take a while, a good length of time to get through the process. So I don't expect us to be back, for a final product of maybe 2025, like mid-25. So it's not going to happen soon with the final results. So it's going to take some time. Second, I just want to remind council, and maybe for the public purpose too, is that by that time, we're going to be generating close to $5 million in excess cash due to the, our debt service going down. So we're in a good financial flexibility where some of this cash flow can be maneuvered around to minimize whatever the cost we want to do on offsetting this rate structure. So I want to keep sure the public knows, here comes a new rate. Well, we're not there yet because we do have the flexibility to minimize this effect too. Once we get the data back and see what the numbers are, maybe we can minimize the total effect. So that won't be known to, probably early 2025. So it's going to take some time to get through this process if you still want to go forward with it, which hopefully y'all want to do it, which I think it's a good, prudent idea to do it. And we'll be back next week or next council meeting with a contract. That's all I have to say. Good night.
I got one question for you.
Yes, sir.
And it's more just clarification so everybody knows. Right now, we talk about wastewater and water and our rate structure for it. Nowhere in the past that I can recall did we ever incorporate anything with storm drainage, storm water systems within that rate structure at all. So as we go through this portion of it and looking at any type of rate associated with stormwater, it's not going to mean that there's a comparable deduction on water or wastewater because we're moving it from one fund to the other or one rate from the other.
That's correct, not necessarily. Because the only rate item I'm talking about is from the debt rate from the utility side, not the operational rate.
Right.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Well, thank you, council.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And then with that, we are going to recess into executive session. We will take a quick 5-minute break, because it is getting late. I don't want to go longer than that, just to allow the room to clear. And 7:58.
The City Council will recess for executive session on the 7th day of November 2023 at 7:58 PM. Subject matter executive session deliberation is as follows: Texas Government Code 551.087, 551.071, and 551.072.